Chapter 5074. And that's good. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said with a smile, however, I'm not at ease with senior martial brother Li taking care of fellow Taoist Kai alone. How about I help you find an escort? Escort? Li Zongbao and Kai Zhuoxia were surprised. They didn't understand what escort meant. However, Xiaohua didn't explain. He took out a few storage pouches from the space and handed them to Kai Zhuoxia. Fellow Taoist Kai, these are some spiritual pills and cultivation methods suitable for you. Since senior martial brother Li has cultivated the 9 transformations golden pill, you might as well follow his lead. Usually he can also guide your cultivation and you won't be lonely. Xiaohua's follow his lead was somewhat ambiguous. Kai Zhuoxia's face was slightly red, but she didn't say anything after receiving the storage pouches. When Kai Zhuoxia received the storage pouches, Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "Let's go. Little brother will take fellow Taoist Kai to see senior martial brother Li's confidant." Kai Zhuoxia was surprised and looked at Li Zongbao with some puzzlement. Li Zongbao smiled calmly and held Kai Zhuoxia's small hand without saying anything. Seeing the surrounding wind and light rapidly moving, Li Zongbao and Kai Zhuoxia steadied themselves and saw Yi Yin and Guyu standing quietly in front of them. Kai Zhuoxia? Although the appearance of Xiaohua and others was strange, but hearing the movement, Guyu and Yi Yin immediately raised their heads. Seeing the living Kai Zhuoxia standing in front of them, Guyu couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Using both hands to cover her mouth, her eyes widened, full of disbelief. She had seen Li Zongbao whispering in front of the crystal coffin more than once, but she never dreamed that she would see the living Kai Zhuoxia one day. Although Yi Yin hadn't seen the crystal coffin, he heard Zhang Qingxiao talk about it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have helped Li Zongbao so decisively. Yi Yin glanced at the beautiful Kai Zhuoxia in astonishment before immediately shifting his gaze to Xiaohua. However, he merely glanced at him before lowering his head respectfully and didn't say a single word. His heart was already as clear as a mirror. When faced with such a cultivator with the ability of creation, how could his gaze dare to blaspheme? Zhuoxia. After Guyu calmed down a little, Li Zongbao pulled Kai Zhuoxia's hand and flew in front of Guyu. "This is Miss Guyu, a swordsman of the Huan country's Void Heaven Sword School. After the great battle of the Tao of Sword, I came to Mount Meng alone, and I met her, who was also traveling alone. Oh, speaking of which, do you still remember that I told you about junior brother Zhao's title that caused sword cultivators to tremble with fear in the battle of the Sword Tao? Hee hee. How could the quick-witted Kai Zhuoxia not know what had happened? Guyu." Xiaohua looked at Guyu and knew that she looked strong, but her heart was miserable. He said, "Your aptitude is average, but you have a big heart. If you want, I'll let my disciples accept you as a disciple." "Many thanks for senior's kindness." Guyu answered stubbornly, "I'm a disciple of the Void Heaven Sword School. As long as Sword Master Chong doesn't expel me from the sword school, I can't betray my master. I've just collected the corpses of Qin Nongxue and Lu Su. I'm going back to meet Sword Master now." "Fine." Xiaohua naturally couldn't force her. He nodded and smiled. "I'm in charge of the Fortune Gate. The Fortune Gate's door will always be open for you. As long as you want, you can come find me at any time. Many thanks for senior's kindness." Guyu stood up and nodded to everyone. She urged her body and flew away on the invisible sword. "Senior, please wait a moment." After Guyu flew away, Yi Yin whispered to Xiaohua, "Junior will send a few disciples to protect Guyu." "Very good." Xiaohua smiled and nodded. Kai Zhuoxia looked at Guyu's back with interest and said with a smile, "This little girl is quite stubborn." "What little girl?" Xiaohua said grumpily. "She's a 3rd-grade illusory swordsman. If there's no accident, she will definitely step into the sword transformation realm within 30 years. She's older than you." "So what if she's older than me?" Kai Zhuoxia smiled and said, "If she comes, she's still a little sister." Li Zongbao didn't understand and said, "She won't come." How could Kai Zhuoxia not know Li Zongbao's heart? Without her, Li Zongbao was already a Lu Xiaohui. Now that he had her, if he couldn't be a Lu Xiaohui, then wouldn't it be her fault? Therefore, Kai Zhuoxia responded and flew back to Li Zongbao's side. She put her arm around Li Zongbao's arm and said with a smile, "I understand." Not long after, Yin flew back. Xiaohua said, "Yin, senior martial brother Li and Kai Zhuoxia are going back to the Kai family in Liang. I can't follow them closely. I'll leave their safety to you. Senior, please rest assured." Yin bowed and said, "Leave everything to me." As Xiaohua spoke, he took out a storage pouch from his space and passed it to Yin. He said, "I don't have time to guide you on your cultivation technique for now. These are rare spirit fruits and spirit wine in the Dawn Rain continent. Many of them are useful in replenishing one's lifespan." Speaking up to here, Xiaohua raised his brows and looked into the distance. He didn't say anything else and threw the storage pouch to Yin. He said to Li Zongbao and Kai Zhuoxia, "Senior martial brother Li, fellow Taoist Kai, I have something to do. I'll take my leave first." After he finished speaking, Xiaohua's figure flashed and he disappeared. "Farewell, senior." Li Zongbao and Kai Zhuoxia cupped their hands to send him off. Yin didn't dare to delay and respectfully knelt down and kowtowed as he shouted. After waiting for a moment, Yin stood up and said to Li Zongbao and Kai Zhuoxia, "Seniors, let's go." Kai Zhuoxia didn't know Yi Yin's identity. Seeing that she couldn't see through Yi Yin's cultivation at all, she hurriedly smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, you don't have to be so courteous. The journey is long, don't call me senior." I don't dare." Yi Yin said with a smile, "With Senior Xiao in front of me, how can I call you fellow Taoists?" Alright. Kai Zhuoxia wanted to say something, but when she thought about the relationship between her younger sister and Xiaohua, even if she was a mortal, this cultivator in front of her had to call her senior. Therefore, she could only nod and agree. However, before they flew up, the female cultivator's curiosity flared up again. She couldn't help but ask, "Zongbao, what do you think junior martial brother Zhao's cultivation is now?" "I'm not sure. I didn't ask him." Li Zongbao answered honestly. "Maybe he's transcending tribulation?" "What? Transcending tribulation?" Kai Zhuoxia cried out and said, Then isn't he very close to the Great Ascension stage? Once he reaches the Great Ascension stage, won't he ascend? Since when did our Dawn Rain continent have such a powerful expert?" "Seniors." Looking at the two seniors who were confused by the situation, the spectator Yi Yin said with a smile, "Junior feels that Senior Xiao is far from a Great Ascension stage expert." "How is that possible?" Li Zongbao was also stunned. "Is there a cultivator who surpasses the Great Ascension stage in this world?" "Seniors, have you heard of a cultivator who can save people's lives?" Yi Yin didn't say much, but just one sentence was enough to enlighten the two. Yes, although Xiaohua mentioned it casually, but who in this world had ever seen a cultivator who could save people's lives? Li Zongbao had traveled through millions of Meng mountains in the past few hundred years, but he had never found such a person. He hadn't even heard of such a person in legends. Could a cultivator like Xiaohua still be considered a cultivator in the human world? "Oh no!" Kai Zhuoxia suddenly cried out, "Junior martial brother Xiao has ascended. What should I do?" P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 5075. Not to mention that Kai Zhuoxia was worried about her sister, Xiaohua teleported high up in the sky. In just a moment, the space was torn apart, and Feng Wu and Demon Venerable Shi flew out. "What's the situation?" Xiaohua went straight to the point. "The situation is not good." Feng Wu understood Xiaohua's mood and didn't say much, concluding with one sentence. Xiaohua knew that he was facing an immortal formation. How could he find a way to break the formation in one go? However, he couldn't help but curse, "Damn it. Big brother." Demon Venerable Shi hurriedly comforted, "Although the situation is not good, Big Brother's guess is right. The information that fifth brother got from the Great Sage Hall is also not bad. There is indeed a problem with the heaven, earth, and human peaks of the Tai Ching sect. I approached the 3 peaks from the sky and didn't feel anything different, but if I flew up from the bottom of the 3 peaks, I felt an aura that I was especially afraid of. If I'm not wrong, it should be a Buddhist formation. Other than this mountain peak, the little brother could pass through the other two mountain peaks and fly out from the other two places. And in this space, there are extremely weak traces of a formation. This trace. Ordinary cultivators, even if fifth brother said it, he wouldn't be able to sense it. Demon Venerable is talking about the heaven peak. Feng Wu explained, I can reach the top of these 3 peaks and enter the so-called 9 heavens. Among them, the earth peak I is the easiest. The formation on it should be a demonic formation. If that's the case, then there should be a Tao formation on the human peak. Xiaohua frowned, then looked at Demon Venerable Shi and asked, You really can't see anything? Reporting to Big Brother. Demon Venerable Shi was a bit embarrassed and replied, I was boasting too much earlier. The Buddhist, Taoist, and demonic formations are really flawless. There is no trace of the formation at all. I can't break the formation either. What if we forcefully push down the heaven, earth, and human peaks? Xiaohua probed. Demon Venerable Shi didn't hesitate and said, When I came back, I already discussed this with fifth brother. Oh? What's the result of your discussion? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Feng Wu asked, Fellow Taoist, if you set up the array formation, how would you deal with the 3 peaks? Xiaohua pondered for a moment, and his expression changed again. A moment later, he said bitterly, If the heaven, earth, and mortal peaks are the eyes of the formation, then these 3 giant peaks are the greatest flaws. If I were to set up the formation, I would definitely prevent anyone from toppling these 3 peaks. I must strengthen these 3 peaks so that no one will be able to topple them. Of course, this is a passive defense. If it were an active defense, it would be even more troublesome. If someone were to attack these 3 peaks, I would definitely activate other methods. Not only do we use other methods. Demon Sovereign Shi said seriously, if we are more vicious, it will cause the immortal formation to mutate even more. You're saying? Xiaohua had an epiphany. The immortal formation will expand and move toward the Dawn Rain continent or the West Ocean, causing a change in heaven and earth? This is just little brother's guess. Demon Sovereign Shi nodded. Alas, it seems our plan to break the immortal formation by force will fail. Xiaohua sighed. We still have to find the flaws of the immortal formation before we can break it. That should be the case. Feng Wu nodded. Although we've already arrived at the Dawn Rain continent, we can't act in a hurry. We can only slowly find a way to break the formation. Xiaohua responded and said, Fellow Taoists, please go back and rest first. Later, I will settle some karma. Fellow Taoist, you have a lot of karma in the Dawn Rain continent. Which one should you go to settle? Taoist which asked. Naturally, it's Xian Wan, who has done I a great favor. Xiaohua smiled. Previously, I only thought that it was easy to let Yuan Ya and Dai go together. Later, I realized that Xian Wan's favor to I was as heavy as a mountain. I can't slack off and have to go there personally. Now that the matter of Million Meng Mountains has been settled, and Her Majesty is still trapped in the formation, I should save her first. Taoist which understood and said, Fellow Taoist, you know how to repay kindness. That's not bad. You've set a good example for us. However, before we go, we still have to make a trip to Mingxi and get the metal and wood essences in our hands. Xiaohua smiled. Let's not have any more twists and turns and start a dispute. Let's go. His clones laughed and flashed into the space. Just as Xiaohua was about to move, he heard Taoist Thunderbolt shout in the space, Fellow Taoist, that little Yi has woken up. Alright. Xiaohua was somewhat helpless. This was really one thing after another, and everything seemed to be urgent. Xiaohua took out the Kunlun mirror. As the light vibrated, Ji Yu and Yi Yun were sent out. The two of them came out of the space and looked around strangely. Their gazes fell on Xiaohua, and the two of them called out at the same time, Xiao. Taoist Xiao? Why is it you? Xiaohua smiled and said, Why can't it be me? Don't tell me it's still that Bai Fei? Hearing the name Bai Fei, anger unconsciously appeared on Ji Yu's face, but Yi Yun was somewhat embarrassed. Fellow Taoist Xiao, where is this? Ji looked at the unfamiliar place and asked curiously, "Could it be the Lost Land?" Xiaohua replied, "You're right, this is the Lost Land." But Yi Yun was puzzled. "Senior Xiao, this junior clearly fell into the blood sea with Ji that day." Speaking up to here, Yi Yun and Ji looked at each other at the same time. Shock appeared in their eyes, and they called out at the same time again, could it be that you saved us?" While speaking, Ji hurriedly released his divine sense to check. This time, it didn't matter, but Ji's head buzzed. Xiaohua's cultivation was no longer the middle nascent soul stage from before, but a realm that was like a giant peak, and he couldn't see the peak at a glance. Damn it. Ji immediately thought of his behavior in the heaven-wind Forbidden Lands maze, and cursed in a low voice. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior greets Senior Xiao." "Senior Xiao?" Seeing Ji bow, Yi Yun didn't dare to neglect and bowed as well. "No need to be so polite." Xiaohua helped them up and said, "You and I are in the same line of work," and this old man was moved by Ji's infatuation. In that dangerous blood sea, Ji risked his life to save Yi Yun. Even this old man felt admiration, so this old man reached out to save you. It was just a small effort, so don't worry about it. But Bai Fei? Yi Yun knew that it was inappropriate to ask about Bai Fei's life at this time, but she couldn't help but ask. Bai Fei had another opportunity. Xiaohua replied, "She was saved by that angel from the Holy Light Realm, and it is said that she also came to the Lost Land." Yi Yun's face was filled with joy, but it turned pale in a moment. She said in a low voice, "Senior, thank you for telling this junior this news, hee." Xiaohua looked at the little girl and said, "Yi Yun, it seems that you still miss Bai Fei. Don't forget who abandoned you in the blood sea, and who reached out to you at the critical moment. This junior won't forget Ji's kindness." Yi Yun didn't hide it and said faintly, "But this junior can't blame Bai Fei. After all, in that situation he couldn't even escape, so how could he care about others? Now that fate has made a fool of us, this junior can't blame others. If it was so simple, this old man wouldn't be here talking to you so much." Xiaohua said with a cold smile, "Do you think that the matter between you and Ji will happen so easily?" "Senior?" Yi Yun was shocked, her face flushed red, and asked shyly, "What do you mean by that?" "It's very simple," Xiaohua said indifferently. "Bai Fei doesn't have you in his heart. He has been using you, and his goal is to obtain your absolute fiend profound yin." "How is that possible?" Yi Yun was like a girl who fell in love in the secular world. She couldn't believe her ears and couldn't help but ask. So Xiaohua told her everything that happened in the Heavenly Wind Forbidden Area, and how he found out that Yi Yun had the absolute fiend profound yin when he saved her, and that there was something abnormal in her body. Finally, he said, "If I'm not wrong, Bai Fei gave you some kind of pill to expel the absolute fiend profound yin from your body, and then he took the opportunity to steal it." When Yi Yun heard this, the blush on her face disappeared, and her face turned pale. She already thought of the pills that Bai Fei gave her. "Damn it," Ji cursed, "how can this guy be so despicable? If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have let him go in the maze that day." "You're wrong," Xiaohua said with a smile. "You were right to let him go. If you didn't, I'm afraid the one who would die would be you. How did you know Bai Fei's arrangements?" When Xiaohua finished explaining Bai Fei's arrangements, Ji's back was drenched in cold sweat. He really didn't expect Bai Fei's schemes to be so deep. Many things were actually very easy to see through from a different perspective. When Xiaohua said this, Yi Yun pondered for a moment and immediately understood many of the key points. She sighed and took out the wind wheel from the heaven and earth ring and handed it to Xiaohua. "Senior Xiao, this is a gift from Bai Fei. I'll have to trouble you. If you see Bai Fei, please return this to him." "Hee, it's better for you to do this yourself." Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. He didn't take the wind wheel. "Io, senior." Suddenly, Ji thought of something and hurriedly cried out, "If Bai Fei didn't die, wouldn't he be in the Lost Land? If he knows that Junior and little Yi Yun are also alive?" Xiaohua shook his head. "I don't think you need to worry about this. Although Bai Fei is eager for quick success, he is still a cultivator with principles. He won't kill you just because you know his background. He also won't harm you just because you stole Yi Yun. In his eyes, there is only cultivation. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5076. Junior is not afraid. Ji said tentatively, but Junior is afraid that he will attack little Yi. Oh right, there is still Du Peng. Hearing this, Xiaohua suddenly realized that Du Peng had revealed his identity as a devil in the Wuming mountain range. How could he allow Ji Yu and Yi Yun, who knew his identity, to live? Forget it. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, since you are in the Lost Land and can't return to the defeated Immortal Union, why don't this old man let my disciple accept you into my fortune gate? Senior has a disciple? Ji Yu and Yi Yun were surprised. Xiaohua stroked his chin and said with a smile, this old man is the senior Zhang Xiaohua that you are talking about. Now, the Heaven Alliance and Tao Alliance of the Yi-Lin continent should know this old man's real name. You are just in the Lost Land and haven't received the message yet. What? You? You are senior Zhang Xiaohua? Ji Yu and Yi Yun inserted a 7-layered light feather into their imagination, but they probably couldn't imagine that Xiaohua was Zhang Xiaohua. They couldn't help but exclaim, that? The senior who modified the nascent soul and primordial spirit cultivation methods? Seeing that the two were exclaiming too much, Xiaohua waved his hand and said, no need to be so surprised. You will know in the future. Xiaohua activated the Kunlun mirror and casually found a spirit-severing stage disciple from the space and asked him to accept the two as his disciples. Then, he gave them some pills and sent them to the Shenhua continent. He stretched out his hand and tore open the void and went to the netherworld. More than a month later, in the extreme north of the country of Shi, it was already midwinter. Snowflakes fell from the sky as if they were dancing in the wind. On the ground, although it was not completely covered in white, there were still layers of white that looked like duckweeds of various sizes floating in the air. The landscape here was different from other places. Between the white duckweeds, there were many protrusions. These high and low hills were like the waves of the earth, frozen in place and welcoming the cold wind. Xiaohua flew out from the void and looked at the sky first. Then he looked around. Unfortunately, within 1,000 miles, it was either white or gray. If it was not snow-covered withered grass, then it was bare hills. How could he see where he was? Forget it. It should be here. I went from Drifting Cloud Lake to Dark Mystery, and then from Dark Mystery to the north of the state of Shi. Surprisingly, I didn't take too many detours. That's already pretty good. Xiaohua mocked himself and took out the Kunlun mirror. As he activated his magic power, Dai and Yuanya flew out. Yuanya was still fine. He stood in midair and respectfully saluted Xiaohua. When Dai saw such a familiar scene, how could she hide it? She couldn't help but cry as she whispered, Nyang Nyang. However, when she looked around, she hurriedly stopped crying and bowed. Greetings, Sect Master. This disciple has been rude. Xiaohua helped Dai up and said with a smile, this kind of rudeness is good. You don't forget your roots and care about your loved ones. This old man is more than happy, so how can I blame you? Master, is this the Dawn Rain continent? Yuanya looked around and asked somewhat abruptly. Sai, that's right. Xiaohua also looked around. Although he had just seen it, it was as if he had seen it 1,000,000 times and didn't get tired of it. He raised his hand and pointed around, sighing. This is the Dawn Rain continent that this old man cultivated and grew up in. Sect Master? Gathered her emotions and said with a smile, didn't you say that when we arrived at the Dawn Rain continent, you would have Yuanya come with this disciple? Why did you come personally today? Xiaohua replied, this old man previously thought that the Dongshan Yi who imprisoned Nyang Yang was only an ordinary demon. You and Yuanya could break the demon formation without needing this old man to do anything. Later on, this old man felt that Nyang Yang's kindness to this old man was as heavy as a mountain. If this old man didn't come, how could I face Nyang Yang? So after dealing with some trivial matters, I went to the north of the country of Shi according to what you said earlier. Take a look, Is this the place where you and Yang Yang were ambushed that day? Sect Master? Dai hurriedly replied, the scenery here is similar to the one where this disciple was ambushed previously. However, this disciple was young at that time and was carried by Yang Yang to fly. Moreover, after escaping, I was seriously injured and my mind wasn't clear. In the end, I was captured by Dao cultivators, so this disciple already doesn't know the specific location. Then it's a bit strange. Xiaohua frowned. This old man has just checked the area within 10,000 li. There isn't any aura of a demon formation? When Dai heard this, her face unconsciously turned pale. She said in a low voice, could it be that Dongshan Yi has already made his move? It should be like this. Xiaohua's mood was also heavy. He said, after all, several hundred years have passed. If Dongshan Yi has any intentions, he would definitely make his move. Thus, Yunya said in a low voice, don't worry, I'll accompany you to look again. If Nyang Nyang really has met with misfortune, I'll help you catch that old wolf Dongshan Yi, skin him, and pull out his tendons. Thank you. Dai saw that even Xiaohua couldn't find any trace of the great formation. She knew Nyang Nyang must have met with misfortune, so she felt a bit disheartened. She forced a smile and said, I'd rather Nyang Nyang be safe and sound than kill Dongshan Yi. You wait and start from there? Of course, Xiaohua wasn't willing to give up. After all, he only roughly looked around before. Moreover, this area was located at a spatial fault. He couldn't be completely sure that the Great Formation was no longer there. Flying north for 1,000 li, they crossed a yellow-brown desert. It was another high and low hill. It was extremely similar to the previous one. And here, they had already passed the spatial fault. Xiaohua released his divine sense. Unfortunately, when Xiaohua explored the surrounding 10,000 li, he still didn't find any traces of the demon formation. Xiaohua stood in the wind and snow and frowned. If Dongshan Yi killed Nyang Nyang, this is a bit troublesome. Just as Dai said, she's already gone. What's the use of revenge? Moreover, Nyang Nyang is a demon. She has fallen for a long time. Without a body, I have no way to revive her. Alas, why are things in this world so unsatisfactory? After half a day, and Yuanya also came over. Looking at their expressions, they didn't look optimistic. Xiaohua didn't say much. He pointed at the 10,000 li in front of him and said, this old man has already checked. You wait, look again. No need. Dai expression had already calmed down. She shook her head and said, since Nyang Nyang has already fallen, disciple can only accept this fact. Disciple now only wants to find Dongshan Yi and cut him into pieces to avenge Nyang Nyang. All right. Xiaohua nodded. The matter of revenge will be left to you and Yunya. With Yuanya's strength, there should be few opponents in the Dawn Rain continent. Yes, Master. Yunya bowed and said, you must have been busy with saving the world. This kind of grievance will be left to this disciple. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, if that's the case, you two don't need to return to the Kunlun Immortal Paradise. Go to the country of Shi first and inquire about Dongshan Yi's whereabouts. Thank you, Sect Master. Dai was obviously stronger and calmer than Xianwan. She had immediately changed her mind when she saw that Nyang Nyang had fallen. Now that Xiaohua had agreed to her request, she hurriedly bowed and said, Nyang Nyang's matter is important to disciple, but compared to our Fortune Gates matter, it is trivial. Our Fortune Gates high-level disciples are all in the 3 mainlands. Disciple and Yunya should follow Sect Master for now. No need. Xiaohua laughed and said, while you two search for information, also check out the situation on the Dawn Rain continent and lay the foundation for our Fortune Gates establishment on the Dawn Rain continent. Yes, disciple understands. Dai hurriedly lowered her head and agreed. Yunya looked around and asked, Master, is this the country of Shi? Where should we go? Xiaohua smiled and pointed to the south. This is the north side of the country of Shi. That's the country of Shi. Further northeast is the Sky Patrol City, which is where this old man saved Dai. Speaking of this, Xiaohua's heart suddenly moved and he looked at Dai. Dai Was a little confused as she didn't know why Xiaohua had suddenly stopped. Don't be impatient, Xiaohua said and was about to teleport away, but after thinking for a while, he stopped and said to Yuanya and Dai, this old man will wait for you here. Go to the nearby cultivators and ask them where the Sky Patrol City is and how far it is from here. Yes, disciple understands. Dai, and Yuanya didn't dare to delay and hurriedly teleported away. In less than half a cup of tea's time, Dai, and Yuanya returned and reported, Master, the Sky Patrol City is in the direction you just pointed out, but it's still several 100,000 li away. Xiaohua clapped and laughed. That's right. That's right. Now that our cultivation is high, several 100,000 li is not far in our eyes. This is also the place where the goddess and Dai escaped that day. It's also the place where Dai was captured by a Dao cultivator disciple. However, during the auction in the Sky Patrol City, most of the cultivators were Foundation Establishment cultivators. There were very few Golden Core cultivators. Their flying speed was slow and the range they could reach was small. Although the terrain here is similar to Dai's memory, it's too far away from the Sky Patrol City. Presumably, it's not here. If we fly in the direction of the Sky Patrol City, we will definitely find other clues. Master, you're right, disciple just thought of it. Yuanya was not flattering Xiaohua. He really didn't think so much. As for Dai, she was too concerned. Seeing that she couldn't find the goddess, she couldn't help but feel confused. How could she think about the gap between her cultivation at that time and now? Then, Xiaohua led the two of them to release their divine senses and flew toward the Sky Patrol City. The three of them flew very slowly and carefully probed with their divine senses. However, after flying for a few days, they still couldn't find any trace of the demon array. During this period, the same hilly terrain appeared from time to time, but many places were still dominated by glaciers and mountains. Seeing that there were gradually snowy mountains and fewer hills, Da's face turned ugly again. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it a tip, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5077. Half a day later, seeing that the ground was covered in snow, which was completely different from Dai's memory, the three simply sped up. Just as they were flying, Xiaohua raised his hand and pointed ahead. There is a hilly area with a radius of hundreds of miles in front, which is now covered by snow. Further ahead, there will be an ice river, which is where Century City is located. If there is nothing here, I'm afraid there really isn't anything here. But Dai agreed, biting her lips lightly, urging her body to turn into a gust of wind and crash into the wind and snow. As he flew towards the hills in the distance, Xiaohua naturally released his divine sense. Unfortunately, when he flew closer, his divine sense had also carefully scanned the entire area within 1,000 li of the hills, but there was still no trace of the demon race's aura. Xiaohua couldn't help but curse in a low voice, damn it. When they flew to the hills, Yuanya and Dai's faces were disappointed again. However, Xiaohua still said, you wait and take a closer look. Yes, master. Yuanya knew that there was no hope, but he still took Dai's hand and flew towards the hills. Dai even urged her body to escape into the ground to explore. After a full hour, the two of them finally flew back. Obviously, they didn't find anything. Master. Er's expression was a little excited at this time, and she replied, Disciple is sure that this is the place where Disciple and Empress were ambushed, because there is a hill in the distance that looks like Demon King Imosa. Disciple has some impression when she was unconscious and escaping. That's strange. Xiaohua frowned. There is no aura of a demon array within a radius of 10,000 miles, but there is, Xiaohua said, pointing to a very far corner, there is an aura of a magic array, which is very far from the ground, mixed with some fluctuations of a soul array. If there is no accident, it should be the remains of the battle between Dao cultivators and soul cultivators in Xiaoyu continent. Alas, Dai was helpless. She didn't find the remains of the magic array and soul array. Since Xiaohua could see it and said there was no aura of the demon clan, there must be no demon array within a radius of 10,000 miles, so Dai sighed. In that case, Dongshan Yi must have killed Empress and then removed the demon array. Let's go. Xiaohua nodded and waved his hand. However, after the three of them had flown for 100 miles, Xiaohua's heart suddenly shook, and he asked, Dai, this old man wants to ask you, have you heard of the Heavenly Feather Holy World? Dyer hesitated for a moment before nodding. Sick Master, I know. That is the holy land of our flying feather race. The Sky Rain Realm, Sky Rending Realm, and the Phoenix Sacred Realm of the Wind Race have to go to the Holy Land every 10,000 years to select their holy maiden. Oh. If you don't know anything else, why do you remember it so clearly now? Xiaohua smiled and asked, if I'm not mistaken, Xian Wan was previously the holy maiden of the Heavenly Blessing Palace, right? Since these words were asked by Xiaohua and not spoken by Dai, also did not deny it. She nodded and said, that's right, it's precisely so. Otherwise, Demon King Emosa wouldn't have married my lady. Well, with the status of the Tianfu Palace in the 10,000 Demon Realm, Xian Wan marrying Demon King Emosa from the original realm should be climbing up the social ladder. Xiaohua nodded and asked again, then, have you heard the holy maiden talk about the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm? Dyer listened and was a little puzzled, so she respectfully said, Sect Master, I don't know why Master is asking about the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm. Regarding the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm, the Holy Maiden has told me a little. After all, there are some interesting things inside. However, as a member of the Wind Race, I don't dare to reveal too much about the Sacred Realm's secrets. Oh, it's like this. Xiaohua smiled and said, because when this old man was in the Yilin continent, that is, on the other side of the Wuming Mountain range, I once heard that many years ago, many cultivators of my Dao sect crossed over to the 10,000 demon realm. Of course, they have long fallen. This old man did not see any humans in the 10,000 demon realm. However, they went to the 10,000 demon realm in order to establish a sect. Naturally, they also brought cultivation technique jade slips and other things. Although they fell, what about these cultivation techniques? Did they leave them behind? This old man came and went in a hurry in the 10,000 demon realm and did not pay too much attention. When I just flew here, this old man suddenly had a thought. Do Xian Wan and Dongshan Yi know my Dao sect's cultivation technique? They did not use it often in the 10,000 demon realm, but when they came to the Dawn Rain continent, their demon race's divine abilities were suppressed by the power of the realm. Do they know how to use Dao sect's magic? The thing that trapped the Holy Maiden was not a demon array, but a Dao sect's magic array, or perhaps a soul array. In fact, Xiaohua had another question in his heart. Naturally, it was related to the Kong clan of the Yilin continent. Since the Kong clan had a method to go to the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm, it could be said that the Heavenly Feather Sacred Realm also had Dao sect's inheritance. Since Xian Wan was the holy maiden of the Heavenly Blessing Palace, it was normal for her to know some Dao sect's magic. When Dyer heard this, her face showed an excited expression and said anxiously, yes, yes. Master is right. Although this disciple was still young at that time, this disciple vaguely remembered that I often mentioned the word magic to the holy maiden. If it was magic, it should be the Dao sect's magic. Also, this disciple seems to remember that there was a green light in the array that trapped the holy maiden. This light did not belong to a demon array. Of course, most of the soul arrays have green light. This old man understands. Xiaohua immediately stopped and turned to look at the underground array and said, let's go. When we get back, whether or not it is the one that imprisoned the holy maiden, we should take a look first. After saying this, Xiaohua immediately urged the lightning escape and flew above the array in the blink of an eye. Then he narrowed his eyes and looked at it for a moment, and said to Dyer, who had just arrived, this array is a bit strange. Rather than calling it an array, it is better to call it a soul array. It seems to be attacking the soul. Moreover, there are some green seal characters in the soul array that block the aura in the center of the array. Even this old man can't see it clearly. If this soul array was set up by Dongshan Yi, she must be proficient in soul techniques. Soul techniques are forbidden in our 10,000 demon realm. No demon race can cultivate it. Dyer whispered, if those great sages find out, their race will be exterminated. In this world, there is no lack of humans and demons who are not afraid of death. Xiaohua himself was a Buddhist and soul cultivator. He said with emotion, maybe that Dongshan practiced soul techniques? Then Xiaohua waved his hand. Kachacha! A burst of thunder sounded. A thunder hand that was more than 10 mu in size appeared out of thin air and grabbed towards the soul array deep in the ground. Rumble! A huge roar sounded, and the entire ground shook. A light green light that was several mu in size like a chicken egg was pulled out. This, Dyer sensed for a moment, but she could not sense the Holy Maiden's aura. Moreover, she did not have much impression of the aura of this soul array. Xiaohua glanced at it and smiled. This is a shallow soul array. There is also a Dao sect array mixed in. In the center, there is something similar to a sealed space. The seal has traces of the Dao sect's 9 transformation golden pill. At the same time, it also has the power of the demon race's stars and moon. If there is no accident, it should be the Holy Maiden inside. Holy Maiden! Dyer cried tears of joy and was about to jump over. The soul array set up by Dongshan looked very strange, but in Dyer's eyes, it was not too troublesome to break, so she could not help but want to take action. Xiaohua hurriedly stopped her. Dyer, don't be anxious. Hearing this, Yuan Ye's figure swayed and immediately blocked in front of Dyer. Dyer turned her head and asked puzzledly, Sect Master, is there anything wrong? Of course. Xiaohua nodded and raised a hand to point at the green pattern that looked like a crawling centipede. He said, look at the outer layer of the soul array. This is the soul cultivator's green seal text, but this green seal text has already mutated and is not pure. This mutation is very insidious. Not only does it corrode the caster's body, but it also allows the caster to borrow the power of the soul to attack the besieger. The caster can use the soul array to absorb the power of the wandering souls nearby, so the besieger will most likely die. Then the Holy Maiden, she? Dyer asked worriedly, how is she? There's something like a sealed space inside the soul formation. It's filled with a holy aura. It's like the white light on the horn of a heavenly horse. This white light repels all evil and can even block the mutated green seal text. That's good. Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish, Dyer breathed a sigh of relief. Unfortunately, Xiaohua changed his tone and said, however, this holy aura is a foreign object. Before using it, the caster seems to have been invaded by the green seal text, so the holy aura is no longer complete. After hundreds of years of erosion, the green seal text has already seeped into it. Damn it. Dyer said anxiously, what should we do? Dyer. Yunya frowned and said, wait for Master to finish. If he could make a move, he would have done it long ago. Disciple knows her mistake. Dyer was shocked and knew that she had lost her cool. She hurriedly stopped and flew back to Xiaohua's side and whispered. Xiaohua did not blame her and continued, however, since Dongshan has not made a move yet, it means that the green seal text has not invaded the Holy Maiden's soul. Of course, I can't deny that Dongshan has other plans, which is why he has kept the Holy Maiden alive until now. Oh right, Head Elder. Dyer suddenly thought of something and said, this sealed thing seems to be called a cocoon. It is a treasure from the original realm. It seems to be a gift from a great sage of the original realm. It is said that as long as one activates it, one's life will be saved. However, if one does not have the strength of a great sage, this cocoon will not be broken. Especially, this cocoon will turn into nothingness after a long time, and will be annihilated along with the person being protected. Dyer naturally did not know that Xiaohua had met many great sages in the 10,000 demon realm, and even killed 3 great sages of the demon clan. She was hiding something, but how could Xiaohua not know that this great sage was the Swift Cherry Great Sage? Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and... Chapter 5078. If it's something refined by the Swift Cherry Great Sage, then it's understandable. Xiaohua said indifferently, This thing is indeed powerful, but if it's activated by the Empress' strength as an oceanic powerhouse, it's beyond her ability, and it's inevitable that there will be some flaws. Swift Cherry Great Sage? Dai's eyes flashed with surprise, and she was secretly surprised. What this old man said is nothing. Xiaohua finally said, this old man can break it with a wave of my hand. The most troublesome thing is that Nyang Nyang's soul, body, and so on are connected to this cocoon. As long as there are any abnormal movements in the cocoon, she will sense it and immediately react from inside. In other words, the faster this old man breaks the array, the faster the Empress will die. This, Dai was also dumbfounded. She didn't expect the Empress to be so decisive, leaving no way out. But thinking about it carefully, being surrounded by Dongshan Yi, wasn't it a dead end? If it weren't for the existence of Xiaohua, who would know that Xian Wan was trapped here, and who would come to save her? As Xiaohua spoke, he raised his head and looked in a certain direction with a smile. Of course, the most important thing is that since this soul formation has been activated, Dongshani will definitely sense it. With Dongshani here, we naturally have hope of breaking the formation. Damn it. Dai smiled bitterly and cursed, blaming herself. This disciple was too worried. Please forgive this disciple. You were worried before because you were worried about the Empress, but now, it's because you are afraid of this place. Xiaohua smiled. Dai, you still haven't experienced enough. Seeing the place where you were heavily injured when you were young, your heart's foundation is shaken. From the perspective of my Dao sect, it's an unstable Dao heart. I'm not too sure about Xian Wan's aptitude, but your aptitude is excellent. This old man has high hopes for you. If you have time in the future, you should learn more about the demonic spear with Yuan Ya, and use the demonic qi to sharpen your mind. Yes, this disciple understands. Dai's heart trembled, and she hurriedly bowed. It's good that you understand. Xiaohua nodded and rubbed his hands again. Lightning bolts as thin as hair shot out from the void and pierced into the soul formation like needles. Following the insertion of the lightning needles, the hundreds of dark green ribbons of light slowly stopped moving, like dead poisonous snakes stopped within the light. Then Xiaohua opened his mouth. Rumble. A few fist-sized green seal characters fell into the air. The void became extremely distorted. The green seal characters turned into strange tentacles and grabbed at the dark green ribbons of light. Zzz. The ribbons of light let out hissing sounds as they were slowly pulled out. However, the band of light had only been pulled up a few feet when the holy white light on the left began to sway violently. A faint sense of violence was suddenly born. Troublesome. Xiaohua frowned. He made a grabbing motion with his right hand and a shackling force landed on the white light. The berserk force instantly calmed down. However, at the same time that the berserk force calmed down, strands of fine lines started to appear within the white light. Forget it. Xiaohua hurriedly let go. Then, the green seal characters turned into tentacles and quickly dissipated. The dark green ribbons of light once again fell into the white light. The white light also swayed a few times before returning to normal. After pausing for a moment, Xiaohua transmitted a few words. Unfortunately, this cocoon was refined by the fast cherry grand sage. Xiaohua's transmission couldn't enter, so Xian Wan inside naturally couldn't detect it. Dai hesitated for a moment and turned to look at Yuan Ya. Yuan Ya gave her a smile and said, "Don't worry, Dai. Master is waiting for Dong Shani. He is very careful and likes to go with the flow. If Dong Shani can help solve it, that's the best. Master won't have to take the risk. If Dong Shani can't solve it, Master will use other divine arts. In short, Master will definitely be able to save the Empress." Xiaohua looked at Yuan Ya curiously. Yuan Ya was right. Xiaohua didn't use many of his divine arts. It didn't mean that he couldn't solve it. The worst thing was that Xiaohua could send the complete soul formation into the space. Everything would be as easy as lifting a finger. While they were talking, Xiaohua suddenly raised his head slightly, looked out, and said with a smile, "How could it be her?" She came quickly. Dai and Yuan Ya hurriedly released their divine senses. Unfortunately, in the wind and snow, they didn't see any traces of cultivators. After the time it took to eat a meal, a probing divine sense descended from the sky at the location Xiaohua had previously explored. When it saw Xiaohua and the others clearly, it quietly withdrew. Then, a figure flitted across the red clouds and a slightly surprised voice fell along with the snowflakes. Huh? Who are you? What are you doing here? When the voice disappeared, a female cultivator wearing a rainbow-colored bird feather dress stepped on the red clouds and landed. This woman looked very beautiful. She had a goose egg-shaped face and a pair of eyes that could be happy or angry. The woman's gaze swept over Xiaohua and the others, then looked at the light of the soul formation again. Seeing that it wasn't Dongshan Yi, Ba was a little surprised. She looked at Xiaohua and cupped her hands towards the female cultivator. This one is Yuan Dai. May I know who you are? Yuan Dai. The female cultivator looked at Dai, then at Yuan Yan Xiaohua. Who are you? What are you doing here? Who are you? Yuan Ya asked with some displeasure. Like Xiaohua, he had already concealed his cultivation. How could this female cultivator see through it? Huh, you don't even recognize me. The female cultivator laughed. It seems that you are sword cultivators from Huan country? It seems that you are a very famous cultivator in the Cultivation 3 countries? Xiaohua touched his nose and smiled. May I ask what your name is? I am Fairy Ingzhua from Xuanyan School. The female cultivator said haughtily, How dare you trespass into the territory of the state of Xi without the consent of the state of Xi? Oh, so it is Fairy Ingzhua. Xiaohua nodded. I am Xiaohua. I have long heard of Fairy's name. Unfortunately, I have never had the chance to meet you. Now that I have met you, you are indeed worthy of your reputation. Xiaohua. Hearing Xiaohua call himself Fairy Ingzhua frowned and asked curiously, You are a Dao cultivator disciple? That's right. Xiaohua smiled. I was Shang Huaming's disciple in the beginning. Later, Shang Huaming was killed by 3 nascent soul cultivators. I joined the Imperial Thunder sect. However, my luck was bad and I was expelled from the sect. Fairy Ingzhua was shocked. You are really Xiaohua? You are actually still alive? Of course. Xiaohua smiled sweetly and replied. If I am not alive, who can avenge Shang Huaming's blood feud from my pitiful master? Damn it! Fairy Ingzhua cursed in a low voice. Her figure flashed and she suddenly pounced towards Xiaohua. At the same time, the tyrant spring bud that she had hidden in her hand suddenly shot out. At the tip of the slender and beautiful rod, a large flower bud was about to bloom. As the flower bud bloomed, the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the surrounding sky surged over and gradually condensed into a silken form beside the flower bud. When the flower bud bloomed into a fresh flower, Fairy Ingzhua let out a thunderous shout. Qi, her hand seemed to be pulling a heavy object as she slowly waved it. Countless thin threads streaked through the air near the flower bud, bringing along even more heaven and earth spiritual qi in the surroundings and pierced towards Xiaohua. As these thin threads streaked through the air, they let out a piercing sound and tore apart the nearby void. The entire thin thread transformed into a large net, almost completely enveloping Xiaohua's body. Seeing Fairy Ingzhua make her move, a cold smile appeared on Xiaohua's face. He looked at the void shattering and the magic treasure condensing, yet he said in a lonely voice, What a pity! Fairy Ingzhua was actually taken over by Dongshan Yi. Even if I want to take revenge, I can't. I don't know if I should thank you or kill you. Speaking to her, Xiaohua looked towards Yunya and said, Make your move. However, let her live, let's see how we can save the Empress. Shua. Just as Xiaohua was speaking, Fairy Ingzhua's tyrant spring bud had already hit Xiaohua. However, just as Fairy Ingzhua was dumbstruck, the heavy threads fell through the air, as if Xiaohua's figure was merely an illusion. However, the experienced and knowledgeable Dongshan Yi understood that this was a spatial divine ability. Xiaohua looked like he was in the same space as her, but in reality, long before the tyrant spring bud fell, Xiaohua had already escaped into another space. Seeing this, how could Dongshan Yi not know that Xiaohua's strength was too much stronger than hers? She didn't have time to be shocked, Black gas surged around her body and she transformed to escape. Kill! Yunya roared, holding the bone spear in his hand. He revealed his strength and stabbed towards Dongshan. Seeing the layers of demonic aura on the bone spear, waves of demonic dragon aura that could kill her 10,000 times, not only did it seal the demonic aura and magic power in her body, it even sealed the space of several hundred feet around her. Only then did Dongshan Yi truly realize the danger she was in. But seeing her cry out in fear, she once again took advantage of the situation and waved the tyrant's spring bud. Poo piu piu. Endless rumbling sounds came from the void, layer after layer of threads were extinguished by the demonic aura, the illusion of the flower was pierced by the demonic spear, and finally, with a loud bang, the tyrant's spring bud was pierced by the Yuanying's demonic spear. Amidst the rumbling sounds, a fist-sized hole pierced through the handle of the tyrant's spring bud, and several cracks also appeared near the hole. The demonic aura surged like a tidal wave in front of Dongshan Yi, and the tip of the demonic spear that could pierce through a mountain with just a slight movement was pressed between Dongshan Yi's eyebrows. Dongshan Yi naturally wouldn't give up without a fight. She narrowed her eyes, the demonic aura surged around her body, and she was about to resist again, but at this moment, shwa! Hundreds of holy flames soared into the sky, like a tsunami, shrouding the space of nearly 100 miles. In the flames, Dyer spread her wings and revealed her true form, her elegant neck slightly bent, and her head that was more beautiful than Empress Xianwan's proudly raised. The unique nobility of the Swan clan was inadvertently revealed between her delicate eyebrows. And now, there was an indescribable murderous aura in that nobility. The whistling of the light was like the anger that had accumulated in Dyer's heart for hundreds of years, and the aura that was comparable to a moon elite was even more vast than the sky. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5079. How is this possible? Which elite of the heavenly fortune palace are you? Dongshan Yi was shocked. Facing Yuanya, she might not have been able to gauge Qing Yuanya's strength, but facing Dai, she clearly knew that her little bit of strength was not even comparable to a little wolf cub in front of Dai. She tactfully withdrew her resistance and cried out in shock. Why haven't I seen you before? Of course you've seen the moon elites from 700 years ago. Dai's body was like a crescent moon as she stood in the air. Her holy flames illuminated everything within a radius of several hundred kilometers, and the snowflakes that fell into the center of the flames turned into nothingness. Dai's voice was a little lazy, but also a little arrogant. She said coldly, "But what about the moon elites from 700 years ago? How could you have seen them all?" But Dongshan Yi said one word and then closed his mouth. His eyes, already glowing green, looked at the soul formation in the distance and began to ponder. Dongshan said faintly, "If you want to live, quickly release the Empress from the formation." He. When Dongshan Yi heard this, her heart settled. The demonic qi around her body slowly retracted, revealing Fairy Ingzhua's body. She smiled and said, "Junior can naturally release Xianwan from inside, but Junior would like to ask Senior to agree to Junior's 2 small requests." "Speak," asked without hesitation. "It's very simple." Dongshan Yi replied quickly, "Senior must first promise not to let Xianwan hurt Junior. Secondly, when Xianwan returns to the 10,000 demon realm, she will give Junior the Void Sea primordial water of Demon King Emosa." Damn it. Finally understood why Dongshan Yi chased her from the 10,000 demon realm to the Dawn Rain continent. She cursed in her heart, "So it's for the Void Sea primordial water." However, hesitated and said, "The Void Sea primordial water belongs to Demon King Emosa. I can't guarantee that the Empress can get it from him, but I promise she won't hurt you." Of course the Empress can't hurt Junior now, but what about Senior and the others? Dongshan Yi realized that her request was wrong and quickly corrected it. Glanced at Xiao Hua, nodded and said, Don't worry, we won't do anything. All right. When Dongshan Yi heard this, he was relieved. He smiled and said, Senior, please wait a moment. After he finished speaking, Dongshan's body once again emitted black gas. Strands of dark green light also surged out from the black gas like spirit snakes. When the black gas turned into a black robe, it covered Dongshan's body. Dongshan let out a wolf howl. His body rapidly expanded. He abandoned Fairy Ingjua's human form and turned into a wolf. Senior, please stand back a bit. Dongshan's voice was slightly hoarse. As he spoke, he flew to the front of the array. He looked at the soul array that Xiaohua pulled out of thin air. His dark green eyes looked at Xiaohua and Yuanya. Then, with a roar, the thousands of strands of green light around him turned into threads. It was like the light from a magic treasure from before that rushed towards the soul array. Weng. The green light was naturally formed by small green seal scripts. When these green seal scripts touched the soul array, the green light above the soul array was immediately attracted. It slowly rotated and fell towards Dongshan Yi's position. Following the roar of the soul array, layers of strange halos began to emerge from the soul array's holy flames. They turned into rings and entered Dongshan Yi's body. Sigh. Xiaohua saw this and sighed, You really brought this upon yourself. After that, Xiaohua opened his mouth and a green seal script the size of a fist flew out. This green seal script flashed with a pure dark green color. It rushed between Dongshan Yi and the soul array like a meteor. Ooh! The green seal script turned into a strange screeching sound. A mysterious force was born from the void and instantly cut off the connection between Dongshan Yi and the soul array. Even the green seal script's counterattack was like a river flowing backwards into Dongshan Yi's body. Ugh! Dongshan Yi screamed and flew back. His body was covered in a bloody light. Large pieces of flesh fell from the black gas. There were also faint traces of green light entwining on the flesh. Why do you know the forbidden technique of my 10,000 demon realm? Dongshan Yi stood in the air. The black gas on his body was dim, but the green light was strong. On his ferocious wolf head, he couldn't help but reveal an extremely shocked expression. Xiaohua would not answer his question. He only said coldly, This old man gave you a chance to redeem yourself, but you don't know how to cherish it. You dare to use the spirit-changing technique in front of this old man. Do you think we are all idiots? Ha! Seeing that his plan was seen through, Dongshan Yi raised his head and laughed. What's wrong? I'm already like this. What can you do to me? You can just kill me. I don't want to live anymore. Since the forbidden technique is called a forbidden technique, it is naturally not something an ordinary human or demon can bear. Xiaohua had already seen through Dongshan Yi's suffering. He said lightly, The green seal script is the sound of heaven and earth, the sound of ghosts and gods. You, an ordinary demon, dare to pry into the ghosts and gods of heaven and earth. Isn't it obvious that you will be cursed? You must have trapped Xian Wan because you want to possess her Feng clan's demon body. Are you preparing to struggle at death's door for a few more days? However, this old man will also tell you that even if you possess her body, you won't be able to live for long. The backlash of the forbidden technique is the soul, not the body. You have already possessed Ingjue Fairy, you must already know this flaw. You know that you can never escape this curse, right? That's right. Dongshan Yi endured the double pain from his soul and body. He gritted his teeth and said, It is because I discovered this flaw after possessing Ingjue Fairy that I didn't force Xian Wan further. Otherwise, I would have already done it. If that's the case, Xiaohua smiled, you must have other uses for Xian Wan? Do you want to know? Dongshan Yi looked at Xiaohua and realized something. He actually bargained. Xiaohua waved his hand, You don't need to act smart in front of this old man. If this old man wants to know, I just need to save Xian Wan from this soul array. Why ask you? Ah. Dongshan Yi laughed even louder. Since you can do it, why don't you? You are afraid of harming Xian Wan's soul, right? Damn it. Dai was furious and shouted, How can you know the head elder's abilities? If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid that my empress would misunderstand and think that you did it, he would have broken the array long ago. Empress? Dongshan-yi suddenly woke up and looked at in disbelief. You are actually called Empress Xianwan? You are the little duck from back then? Ha! Laughed with grief and indignation. Yes, it is me. I am the little duck that was almost killed by you back then. Dongshan-yi was stunned and whispered, How is that possible? This has only been 600 years, right? How can you become a moon elite? And you are not restricted by the laws of this realm? My upper race's opportunity, how can a wolf demon of a lower race know about it? Sneered. Dongshan-yi was angry and said, So what if I am of a lower race? Are lower races destined to not surpass upper races? I am just a white swan trampled on by a toad. What is there to be proud of? If your heavenly fortune palace is so powerful, why would you give your saintess to Archfiend Emosa? Look at Archfiend Emosa. I would rather die than marry him. With that, Dongshan-yi looked up to the sky and shouted, Heavens, why are you so unfair? I spent so much effort to cultivate, gave up the easy way to enter the narrow door, gave up my wolf race's cultivation method, and cultivated a forbidden technique. I suffered so much in these years, why can't you look at me? I just want to borrow Archfiend Emosa's Void Sea primordial water to refine my demon body. I just want to borrow the Wind Clan's Heavenly Pure Feather to enter the Heavenly Feather Sacred World to find the source of the forbidden technique. Why is it so difficult? Heavenly Pure Feather? Xiaohua frowned and looked at thoughtfully. Dyer faltered slightly before a joyful expression appeared on her face, and she also exclaimed in a low voice, Tianjieyu? Yes, use Heavenly Pure Feather. How can I be so stupid? Then, shouted, Head Elder, disciple knows how to inform Empress. Heavenly Pure Feather? What is that? As Xiaohua spoke, a meaningful smile appeared on his face. Was a bit embarrassed and whispered, Heavenly Pure Feather is the Wind Clan's sacred object that Disciple mentioned to Head Elder. It was also the object that Disciple hid in Disciple's body when she risked her life to send me out. Dongshan-yi was stunned and shouted, How is that possible? Didn't she marry Archfiend Emosa long ago? She is no longer the Wind Clan's holy maiden. How can she still have Heavenly Pure Feather? What do you know? Said proudly, My Empress is as pure as jade. Even if she married into Emosa Palace, she is still a holy maiden. Naturally, she can still keep Heavenly Pure Feather. That damn Xianwan. Dongshan-yi gritted her teeth and cursed. Then she mocked, Poor toad. AI. Xiaohua heard and couldn't help but think of Archfiend Emosa. Although Archfiend Emosa's appearance was just passable and couldn't match Xianwan, he was really good to Xianwan, so he sighed and said, It should be the respectable Archfiend Emosa. Heard and also said with deep veneration, That's right, Head Elder is right. When Disciple was young, Disciple felt injustice towards Empress, but after thinking about it these years, Archfiend Emosa was really good to Empress. He built Qin School Palace for Empress and gave her the cocoon of the Rapid Cherry Sage, but without Empress's consent, he wouldn't even take a step into Qin School Palace. Moreover, because my Wind Clan has been unable to choose the next holy maiden, Archfiend Emosa has never stayed in Qin School Palace. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, collect, reward. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5080. What can't be obtained always feels precious. Xiaohua nodded and said, And what can be obtained? Never know how to cherish. The human race is like this, the demon race is also the same. Junior understands. Deeply looked at Yuanya, who didn't seem to understand romance and only stared at Dongshan-yi to prevent her from escaping. Junior will not follow in Empress' footsteps. With that, Daiyu's right wing flashed and a holy feather of light flew out. The moment this feather of light appeared, it emitted an extremely pure aura. Countless swan-like rays of light shot out from this feather of light and rushed into the void. Headmaster, this is the pure sky feather. Forgive disciple for concealing it earlier. Die, said somewhat embarrassedly and seemed to want to deliver the pure sky feather to Xiaohua. Xiaohua had already seen the pure sky feather in the space. He slightly smiled and waved his hand. This object is pure and holy, it doesn't have to go through this old man's hands. You can use your own technique to let Empress know. Thank you, Headmaster, for forgiving disciple for concealing it. Lowering her proud head, the pure sky feather landed near the soul formation with a flap of her wings. Swoosh! Without waiting for the pure sky feather to get close, those centipede-like green lights flowing inside the soul formation immediately reacted and flew out of the light shadow and pounced towards the pure sky feather with bared fangs and brandished claws. The pure sky feather slightly trembled like a weak woman, the light flames retracted and actually seemed to be retreating. Sigh. Xiaohua didn't expect the pure sky feather to be so afraid of filthy things. He immediately thought of the timid and cautious Featherwind King he saw in the 10,000 demon realm. Thus, he sighed and raised his hand. Kachacha! 3 corpses in thunder exploded and instantly extinguished the green lights coming out of the soul formation. Once the filth in the space was gone, the pure sky feather spun again like it was dancing and fell towards the soul formation. In front of the pure sky feather, Xiaohua's 3 corpses in thunder didn't disperse but turned into a thunder golden armor and killed all the green lights coming out. Which thunder? Dongshan Yi saw the power of the 3 corpses in lightning and cried out in her heart. Her face was ashen. She clearly knew that her little taboo power was not even worthy of carrying the shoes of this human cultivator named Xiaohua. The pure heavenly feather landed gracefully on the soul formation like light dust brushing against one's face and a light mist dispersing. The pure heavenly feather landed gracefully on the soul formation. The moment the swan-like light touched the light of the pure heavenly feather, the entire pure heavenly feather froze. After the time it took to eat a meal, there was no change to the pure heavenly feather. Instead, the light of the pure heavenly feather continued to pour into the pure heavenly feather. Then, with a boom, the light of the pure heavenly feather exploded. Pure and holy light threads were drawn out like moonlight. At the same time, a whirlpool had appeared in the originally dark sky. The whirlpool tore apart the dark clouds and the full moon peeked out. Right at this moment, Xiaohua faintly smiled. The countless soul threads between his brows turned into countless tentacles that fell down and grabbed all of the green light in the soul formation at the same time. Then, she heard the sound of the earth shaking rumble. All of the green light was extracted. Dongshan Yi was once again dumbstruck. The great spirit switching formation that she had carefully arranged was easily broken by Xiaohua just like that. Swoosh! Under the moonlight, a pure white swan whose body was covered in dark green light spots and black spots appeared, as if it had just hatched from a light egg. That ostentatious and flamboyant pure white wings were so elegant, and that lazy neck of the swan seemed to see everything in the world as dust. An aura that made people feel pity for the swan turned into a cool breeze, and along with the moonlight, it turned the surrounding few miles into a young girl's dreamland. Nyang nyang. Dyer sobbed. She spread her wings and was about to rush into the light. Daya? Nyang Nyang's lazy and unhurried voice sounded. There is a vicious curse here. Don't be anxious. Come closer, Nyang Nyang, don't be anxious. Xiaohua's gentle voice sounded. This one is Xiaohua. This one will immediately help you remove the witchcraft curse. Oh, okay. Nyang Nyang's golden eyes moved slightly. It was unknown if she saw Xiaohua clearly. However, hearing his familiar voice, Nyang Nyang smiled and replied. Kachacha. Lightning struck. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Clear rain surged. The cleansing heaven purifying earth technique that hadn't been used in a long time was used. The lightning and rain controlled the space around Nyang Nyang. Seeing the lightning extinguish the dark green dots around Nyang Nyang's body and the rain wash away the black decay, a perfect and pure Xianwan was reborn in the light. Dongshan Yi's jealousy reached its peak. Finally, A rainbow several zhang in size appeared from the cleansing heaven-purifying earth technique and fell into Xian Wan's body. The 9 colors of light were like a feather coat that appeared on Xian Wan's body. Then it slowly faded. Ha! Xian Wan's surprised voice sounded. Xiaohua, your forbidden technique is actually this powerful? As Xian Wan's voice fell, rumble. The spiritual exchange array collapsed bit by bit, and the surrounding space also collapsed inch by inch. However, what made Xian Wan very puzzled was that these spatial forces that could tear apart her light feathers didn't even touch a single feather on her body. Xian Wan looked at the collapsed formation with interest, and a pensive look appeared in his golden eyes. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the space returned to normal. Xian Wan retracted his wings and returned to his human form. Nyang Nyang. Dyer also turned back into her human form. With tears on her face, she threw herself in front of Xian Wan like a child who saw her mother. Xian Wan smiled and opened her arms to embrace Dyer. She stroked Dyer's hair and said lovingly, "Dyer, I haven't seen you for so long. You've grown up." "Woo woo." Dyer cried. "Yes, Nyang Nyang, I've grown up. I missed you so much. Silly child." Xian Wan smiled gracefully. "Haven't we met again?" Xiaohua didn't step forward. He only looked up at the Nyang Nyang before. He only felt a sense of familiarity and respect. Now that he looked at her again, it was a shocking feeling. No wonder the heavenly blessing palace made her the saintess. No wonder Demon King Masa doted on her so much. No wonder the heartless great sage Minghua had feelings for her. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the bright moon in the sky witnessed Xian Wan's escape. She pulled back the red clouds to cover her tracks and the dancing snowflakes fell again. Dyer got up from the Nyang Nyang's embrace and wiped the tears on her face. She whispered, "Nyang Nyang, you were trapped by Dongshan. It was all thanks to Daoist Xiao. Otherwise, this servant wouldn't know how to save you." Xian Wan nodded. She tidied up her transformed palace dress and bowed to Xiaohua. Xian Wan thanks Daoist Xiao. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't let Xian Wan bow. He raised his hand and smiled. Nyang Nyang's grace to this Xiao is like a mountain. This Xiao should repay Nyang Nyang. Nyang Nyang doesn't need to be so polite. Xian Wan knew that Xiaohua's magic power was profound, but she still underestimated him. Under the bow, she truly felt Xiaohua's magic power as thick as the earth. She couldn't help but be shocked. She asked curiously, "Daoist Xiao, why are you all so strong? Even Dyer? I'm afraid she's a star realm expert, right? Could it be that I've been suppressed for hundreds of thousands of years? Why do I feel like it's only been 1,000 years?" Hee, Nyang Nyang, this servant has now stepped on the edge of the moon realm. Dyer smiled as if she was showing off something fun to her loved ones. Nyang Nyang, everyone has their own opportunities. There's no need to talk about this. Xiaohua said, "You remember correctly. It should be 600 or 700 years. Oh. Xian Wan nodded. She didn't ask any more questions and smiled. Then what about Xiao Huang? Xiao Huang is cultivating in the Kunlun paradise. It's not convenient for him to come out and see Nyang Nyang. Xiaohua didn't hide anything and replied, "However, although his strength is not comparable to Dyer's now, Dyer will not be able to reach him in the future." Xian Wan wasn't surprised. She nodded and said, "If I'm not wrong, he should be the holy beast Di Ting, right?" "And it should be." Xiaohua nodded. "But he still has a long way to go. He has only taken a few steps now." Di Ting? Dongshan Yi's brain was really not enough. She really didn't know who to provoke, but she had to provoke Xian Wan. Who's this? Xian Wan naturally saw Yuan Ya long ago. Yuan Ya's fierce demonic energy made Xian Wan uncomfortable, so she frowned. Dyer saw Xian Wan frown and knew something was wrong. She hurriedly lowered her head and said, "Nyang Nyang, his name is Yuan Ya. He is this servant's, damn it." Xiaohua also knew something was wrong. He cursed in a low voice, "This Xiao should let Yuan Ya save Xian Wan." Xian Wan nodded slightly and said, "I understand." Hee. Xiaohua smiled awkwardly and said to Yuan Ya, "Yeah, come and greet Nyang Nyang." You must have heard about it from Dyer. Yes, master. Yuanya obeyed Xiaohua's words and flew over and bowed to Xianhuan. Seeing this, Xiaohua said to Xianhuan, Nyang Nyang, this is this Xiao's disciple. His name is Yuanya. Although he has a demonic spear and cultivates demonic arts, he is a true man. His heart is magnanimous and his actions are just and honorable. Xianhuan smiled and waved her hand. Yuanya's strength is probably much higher than this queen's. This queen does not dare to accept such a bow. There is no need. Saying this, Xianhuan habitually urged her magic power to stop Yuanya. Unfortunately, Yuanya only had Xiaohua in his eyes and ignored Xianhuan's attempt to stop him. He still bowed and ignored Xianhuan's magic power. Xianhuan frowned and wanted to urge the power of the stars and moon, but Yuanya had already lowered his head. She had no choice but to turn her body slightly to show that she was ignoring him. Yuanya got up. Seeing Xianhuan like this, he also frowned and a trace of anger appeared in his heart. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. While muttering in his heart that no one was perfect, he waved his hand and motioned for Yuanya to withdraw first. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and Chapter 5081. Thus, Xianhuan watched Yuanya leave and said to Dai, I've already told you what the Wind Clan's holy maiden needs to do. All the rules are engraved in the Heavenly Fortune Palace. You've been studying the pure heavenly feather for many years, so you should know better, right? Self-cleanliness is the most important rule. Yes, Empress. Was a little confused, but she suddenly felt uneasy. This servant knows what you're talking about, but what does it have to do with this servant? Empress is my Heavenly Fortune Palace's holy maiden. I've already married into the Masa Palace. The reason I still keep the pure heavenly feather is because the Heavenly Fortune Palace hasn't found a suitable holy maiden. Xianhuan said calmly, Now, I've been infected by the witchcraft curse and am no longer pure. Moreover, I originally wanted you to bring the pure heavenly feather to the 10,000 demon world, but it has accompanied you for nearly 1,000 years. You've already been recognized by the pure heavenly feather, so there's no need for the Heavenly Fortune Palace to find another holy maiden. Your strength is enough to be my Heavenly Fortune Palace's holy maiden. Empress. Dai, hurriedly knelt. Dai, how can I be a holy maiden? Are you a member of my Wind Clan? Xianhuan asked. Dai, answered without any hesitation. Since that's the case, you should know how important the holy maiden is to my Wind Clan. You should be brave enough to bear the responsibility. Xianhuan pointed at the pure heavenly feather. Sure enough, the pure heavenly feather ignored Xianhuan's aura and floated to Dai's head. Xianhuan smiled and said, Look, the pure heavenly feather has recognized you as its holy maiden. It's not nonsense. Dai knelt in the air with mixed feelings. She really didn't expect that the holy maiden she had painstakingly rescued would have such an unforeseen event. Dai couldn't help turning to look at Yuanya. Xiaohua opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but Dai wasn't a Fortune Gate disciple, and she was indeed a Wind Clan's demon spirit. He didn't have the right to interfere with the holy maiden's appearance, right? Not to mention that the pure heavenly feather had already recognized Dai. Dai retracted her gaze and whispered, You are already my Wind Clan saintess, there is no need to call yourself a servant. Xianhuan stopped Dai from arguing and smiled. From now on, you can also be called Xie Dai. I wouldn't dare. Dai bit her lips and said in a low voice, Dai already has a name. Oh. Xie Wei frowned. What's your name? Yuan Dai. Dai seemed to have steeled her heart. Her voice was still rather loud, which made Xie Wei unhappy. Yuan Dai. Xianhuan's eyes glowed with a golden light, but it quickly disappeared. He then said, The name of the Wind Clan saintess cannot be blasphemed. Only the Palace Lord of the Heavenly Fortune Palace can confirm this. Let's talk about this later. Yes, Empress. Dyer lowered her head, and Rin Tianjie landed on her head. Empress. Xiao Hua at the side couldn't help but say, the so-called purity still focuses on the state of mind, not the appearance and body. Xiao Hua's words were not without sarcasm, but unfortunately, Xian Wan ignored him. She watched the pure heavenly feather merge into Dyer's body, then smiled and turned to Xiao Hua. Spiritual Master Xiao, this Empress thanks you again. However, this Empress still has to rush back to the 10,000 demon realm and safely send the new Saintess back to the heavenly fortune palace. This great kindness can be thanked later. No need. Xiao Hua helplessly waved his hand and said, our karma has already been settled, there is no need to say thanks. Good, in that case, this Empress will take her leave. Xian Wan pulled Dai and let her get up and fly away. How should we deal with the wolf clan? Xiao Hua pointed at Dongshan Yi and asked. Xian Wan glanced at Dongshan Yi as if she had seen a speck of dust and said lightly, since it was captured by Spiritual Master Xiao, it will naturally be handled by Spiritual Master Xiao. How Spiritual Master Xiao deals with it is Spiritual Master Xiao's business. It has nothing to do with this Empress. After saying that, Xian Wan pulled Dai and urged her body to fly away. Damn it. Seeing Xian Wan and Dai leave, Xiao Hua couldn't help but curse in a low voice. Lousy guessed the process, but Lousy never would have guessed this ending. Did you see? Dongshan Yi sneered. This is Xian Wan, this is the Wind Clan's holy maiden. She looks holy, but in reality she is a *****. She was forced by Heavenly Blessing Palace to marry Demon King Imosa. Do you know what Demon King Imosa's true form is? A toad, huh? Don't you humans have a saying called a toad wants to eat swan meat? That toad wants to eat swan meat. Oh, that's not right, so far the toad hasn't eaten swan meat. This is nothing in her heart, she is still thinking. Pa. Not waiting for Dongshan Yi to finish, Xiao Hua slapped Dongshan Yi's face and interrupted him, coldly saying, you are wrong. In your opinion, Xian Wan is doing shady business, but in this Xiao's opinion, she is worthy of respect. This Xiao clearly feels that she has mishandled Dai, but this Xiao knows that this is what she should do as a holy maiden. Don't you think that she has the strength to pursue her own happiness, but for the Heavenly Blessing Palace, she endured the humiliation of marrying a toad? Don't you think that she could have flown away with her lover, but she still kept her chastity, living alone in Emosa Palace? Don't look at anything from your own point of view. You're right, but what about your disciple? Dongshan Yi looked at Yuanya with schadenfreude. He's probably going to be alone for the rest of his life, isn't he? Xiao Hua sneered. Even in Origin World's Demon King Emosa can make Heavenly Blessing Palace's Featherwind King marry a holy maiden. Can't my Fortune Gate's personal disciple kill his way to the Heavenly Blessing Palace? Xiao Hua then turned to Yuanya. Disciple is here. Yuanya bowed. Master's karma with Holy Maiden has been settled. Xiao Hua instructed. My Fortune Gate has nothing to do with the Heavenly Blessing Palace. As you can see, Dai has already acknowledged Yuan Dai, and she has you in her heart. You shouldn't let her down. You can do whatever you want, even if you kill your way to the Heavenly Blessing Palace with the Devil Spear, Master will support you. Also, don't worry, no matter what you do, my Fortune Gate will support you. What Heavenly Blessing Palace? What Wind Clan? Even if it's the Origin World, you don't have to be afraid. Go to the 10,000 Demon World and turn it upside down. Yes, Master. Yuanya smiled. Although Dai didn't send me a message, Disciple already understood the look in her eyes. After she sends Xian Wan back to the 10,000 Demon World and returns the pure Sky Feather to the Wind Clan, Junior will kill his way to the Sky Rain World with the Bone Spear. Marry Dai? Very good. The 10,000 Demon World's demon race killed my Profound Alliance's cultivators. It's time for them to taste the power of the human race. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, go give the Swift Cherry Grand Sage a surprise. Xiao Hua then looked at Dongshan Yi and said, since Xian Wan didn't kill you, this old man naturally won't kill you. However, this old man won't let you go. After all, you took over Fairy Ingjua's body, so you should bear the karma of Fairy Yingjue. Let this old man ask you, which nascent soul realm cultivators killed Shang Huaming? When Zhang Qingxiao came back to life, she once said that she killed Shang Huaming's nascent soul, but his cultivation was shallow at that time, so he couldn't see who it was. Zhang Qingxiao's words were all guesses, and Zhang Qingxiao naturally sent a disciple to investigate Long Dan. Xiaohua also saw Long Dan, but he couldn't confirm who it was. Of course, there were many nascent soul realm cultivators in the three countries, but those who knew about the existence of Little White Dragon were definitely the nascent soul realm cultivators in the country of Shi. Fairy Yingjue was the sect master of Xuanyan School, so she must be the main suspect in Zhang Qingxiao's suspicion. Therefore, when Xiaohua saw Fairy Yingjue appear, he immediately probed. At this time, Fairy Yingjue was originally Dongshan Yi's body, so most of Fairy Yingjue's memories were clear, so Xiaohua immediately found out the truth. Dongshan Yi didn't hide anything. She thought for a moment and said, "Since you already know some, then I might as well tell you everything. Anyway, I don't want to live anymore. The others can forget about being happy." Dongshan Yi told him everything she knew, including everything that happened at Shang Huaming's place that night. Hearing that 3 nascent soul realm cultivators killed Little White Dragon, who had crossed the Thunder Tribulation, and casually killed Xiao Yuehong, who was only in the Foundation Establishment realm, Gong Mingwei, and Zhang Qingxiao, who were in the Qi Refining realm, he couldn't help but clench his teeth. These nascent soul realm cultivators really didn't treat low-level cultivators as human beings. After saying that, Dongshan Yi looked at Xiaohua and said, "That's how it is. I have nothing to hide. Quickly do it. Now I've been suffering from the backlash of this forbidden technique day and night. Elder Wu's body and soul can't bear it." Xiaohua listened and pinched his chin, thinking secretly. Dongshan Yi said it clearly. After killing Shang Huaming and the other 2 cultivators and destroying Little White Dragon's body, they didn't catch up with Little White Dragon's soul. The 3 of them divided Little White Dragon's body and inner core, and then returned to their respective sections. Fairy Yingjue had been stuck in the late nascent soul realm for a long time and couldn't break through the bottleneck to enter the spirit-severing realm. Sun Yunzi's Python Dragon core couldn't be refined for a long time, so Fairy Yingjue could only ask Dongshan Yi for help. Just as Xiaohua thought, although the human cultivators of the Xian Alliance were killed by the demon race of the 10,000 demon realm, their cultivation methods were leaked out. Especially some low-level demon spirits, they didn't have their own cultivation methods, so they naturally used the cultivation methods of the human race to cultivate. Moreover, they modified it according to the differences of each demon race. Coincidentally, in order to break through in the early years, Dongshan Yi had studied the 9 transformation golden core cultivation method of the Xian Alliance. Now that he saw Fairy Yingjue asking for advice, he took the opportunity to pass the cultivation method to Fairy Yingjue. Of course, this cultivation method was mixed with some hidden tricks that Fairy Yingjue couldn't detect. Fairy Yingjue was naturally ecstatic when she received the cultivation method. At first, she had some doubts, but after a little bit of cultivation she gained a lot, so she threw away her vigilance and began to cultivate at ease. But Fairy Yingjue didn't know that she was stepping into the trap that Dongshan Yi had set for her step-by-step. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5082. Later, Sun Yunzi successfully refined the Python Dragon Pill. Relying on the Python Dragon Pill and the 9 transformations golden pill technique, Fairy Yingjue stepped into the severed spirit stage and became one of the few grandmasters in Qi. But just when Fairy Yingjue was happy, Dongshan Yi took advantage of the fact that her profound Qi had not recovered and used a secret technique to possess her body. Dongshan Yi had thought that by abandoning her werewolf form and using the body of a human divinity separating stage cultivator, the backlash from the Green Seal script would be eliminated. However, after 100 years, she discovered that the backlash from before had reappeared. Only now did she understand that the backlash from the Green Seal text was not only the body, but also the soul. Since this was the case, for Dongshan Yi who was born in the demon race, Goddess Xianwan's body was 100 times stronger than that of an ordinary human cultivator. Therefore, Dongshan Yi abandoned her earlier plan and prepared to use Xianwan's body for herself. But fortunately, Fairy Yingzhua was a severed spirit stage cultivator. This human body was brand new and could last for 1,000 years. Therefore, Dongshan Yi did not attack Xianwan in these 600 years. Fairy Yingzhua, who killed Shang Huaming, was possessed by Dongshan Yi and died silently. The other murderer, Reverend Lu Enai of the Seven Skills sect, also received his retribution. The Seven Skills sect was originally a refining sect, and the sect's founder left behind countless magic treasures. Among the 3 late nascent soul stage cultivators, Reverend Lu Enai was the most well-prepared. During the tribulation, his magic treasures were packed to the teeth. But even so, Reverend Lu Enai could not withstand the lightning strike and was killed by the lightning. Even his primordial spirit did not escape and his soul was scattered. Up until now, only Sun Yunzi of the Splendid Sect had safely passed through the lightning tribulation. According to the customs of the 3 cultivation nations of the Dawn Rain continent, he had passed the position of sect master of the Splendid Sect to someone else and became a carefree Grand Supreme Elder. Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a rare ruthlessness. He said indifferently, "Good will be rewarded with good and evil will be punished with evil. It's not that the time has not come yet. When the time comes, those who have hatred will take revenge. And now, it's time for Sun Yunzi to die." Xiao Hua looked at Dongshan Yi, his tone was still calm. Previously, this old man already said, "This old man will not forgive you. However, I won't kill you as you think. Killing you is too easy, and you definitely won't learn your lesson. This old man will imprison you and make you suffer the backlash of the forbidden power day and night." As he spoke, Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed. A green light entered Dongshani's body. Dongshani still turned into Fairy Yingzhua's appearance and sat on the ground calmly. Spiritual master, spiritual master. Seeing that he couldn't use his Dharma power, forbidden power, or even demonic power, Dongshan Yi panicked and shouted, "Please have mercy and kill me. I really don't want to live in this world." Xiao Hua ignored her. The Kunlun mirror in his hand shook, and Huang Tong flew out from within. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "I'll have to trouble you, fellow Taoist, to imprison this wolf race with that little snow wolf." "Sure." Huang Tong didn't decline. With a wave of her sharp claws, she grabbed Dongshan Yi and spread her wings, tearing the void apart and leaving. Seeing that there was no one left, Xiao Hua asked Yuan Ya, "Are you going back to Shenhua continent to cultivate, or are you going to walk around Xiaoyu continent with me?" Yuan Ya smiled and said, "Er is gone. My Tao heart is a little unstable, and without her holy power, I'll be in danger refining the bone spear. It's better for me to stay by Master's side." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Yuan Ya looked around and said, "Besides, Lu Yi and the others aren't by Master's side. Master is a supreme being of the human race, and there's no reason for him to do anything. I'll stay by Master's side and serve him." Xiao Hua said curiously, "Yeah, why are you talking so much?" Dai once said that silence is golden, but when it's time to speak, you still have to speak. Otherwise, others won't know what you're thinking. Yuan Ya replied, "So, what I just said is what I think." Good. Auspicious clouds appeared under Xiao Hua's feet, and he slowly flew up and praised, "There's a saying in the human race's Confucian cultivators that a woman is an academy, and a good woman can make a man more outstanding. Yeah, you're blessed." "Yes, Master." Yuan Ya put away his bone spear and respectfully flew behind Xiao Hua. "This disciple will definitely go to the heavenly fortune palace to marry Dai." Xiao Hua smiled and flew aimlessly for a while, then suddenly stopped and turned to look in the direction of Sky Patrol City. "Master?" Yuan Ya naturally knew that direction was Sky Patrol City and hurriedly asked, "Are you going to Sky Patrol City?" "Forget it." Xiao Hua shook his head and said, "Sky Patrol City is now the territory of sword cultivators, and Master has no karma with sword cultivators. Why would I go there?" "Then where are we going?" Yuan Ya asked. Xiao Hua looked in a direction and answered firmly, "The place of origin, the place where the fortune gate takes root. Okay. Yuan Ye replied and left with Xiaohua. Just as Xiaohua turned around, Sky Patrol City, which was like a monster in the sky, suddenly shone brightly, and a city gate that was closed in the wind and snow opened with a roar. Inside the city gate, tens of thousands of flying swords rushed out in a mighty manner, forming a bridge that was several miles long in the night sky, reaching far into the darkness. At the end of the bridge, a handsome young man with a graceful temperament and a serene expression slowly stepped out of the city gate, dressed in a white robe. A faint halo appeared on the robe, reflecting the young man's jade-like face, and under the robe, the light purple sword robe made the young man look even sharper. Behind the young man was a late-stage gold core cultivator. This cultivator was dressed in a Taoist robe, and he also looked young. There was a smile on his face, and there was clearly a kind of respect on his face. As these two people walked out of the city gate, two female foundation establishment cultivators led more than 10 handsome men and beautiful women who were in the Qi refinement realm. They held magic tools that looked like lanterns in their hands and quietly rushed out, then they stood neatly on both sides of the city gate. The brilliance on the magic tools flashed with 9 colors, driving away the nearby darkness. The young man glanced at the night, then looked at the trembling flying sword under his feet, and frowned slightly. Xiao Mao, although this is Sky Patrol City and not Enlightenment Mountain Manor. But such a welcome. Isn't it too stingy? Don't let others look down on you. When Xiao Mao heard this, he humbly replied, Young master, some people like vanity, some people like peace, some people like power, and some people like pampering. Young master, you have to cater to their preferences. Tonight, young master, you have to be as grand as when you welcomed Vice Alliance leader Luo. Maybe that person will avoid you at first sight, and all of young master's plans will be in vain. The young man who was called young master nodded slightly and smiled, then I'll listen to you today. As long as that person enters Sky Patrol City, no matter what the outcome is, I'll get someone to help you conceive a baby. Xiao Mao was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. Thank you for your kindness, young master. While they were talking, there was the sound of a sword, and a small sword swept over their heads and flew into Sky Patrol City. Then, a voice sounded from the city, Young Master Yi, the person you've been waiting for is here. Thank you, General, for asking the patrolling swordsman to let them in. Young Master Yi shouted with a smile. Yes, sir. Someone in the city responded, and another small sword that sent a message rushed into the night sky like a meteor. Young Master. Xiao Mao raised his hand and said, I'll accompany young master to welcome them. But the young man nodded. Sword light appeared under his feet as he stepped on the bridge and flew into the night sky. When Xiao Mao followed, the other low-level disciples did not dare to delay. Like Xiao Mao, they did not step on the bridge. Instead, they urged their bodies to fly behind. After half a cup of tea's time, they saw a red light in the distant night sky. When they flew closer, they could see clearly that it was a flying boat that looked like a bird. There were several Taoist cultivators standing on the flying boat, and the one in front was a female nascent soul cultivator. She was as beautiful as a fairy, and her thin lips carried a faint smile. Not to mention her snow-white skin and peach-red Taoist robe, which gave birth to an unparalleled beauty in the dark night. Just the green bean-sized beauty mole at the corner of her mouth and her jade-like cheeks were enough to give birth to an indescribable wildness. Wasn't this female cultivator Fairy Hongxia? The cultivators behind Fairy Hongxia were not worth mentioning. Most of them were in the Foundation Establishment realm, and only one of them was in the early-stage Golden Core realm. The young man's gaze fell on Fairy Hongxia's beautiful face, and 2 balls of flames suddenly appeared in his originally calm eyes. It was just that the flames were fleeting and not obvious. As the flying boat flew closer, they heard the bridge. Fairy Hongxia did not fly out from the flying boat, but looked at Xiao Mao and frowned. Junior brother Xiao, I'm here. I'm Yi Shixiang. Greetings to Fairy Hongxia. The young man smiled and hurriedly bowed. I've long heard of Fairy Hongxia's great name and have always wanted to meet you. Unfortunately, there was a barrier between sword cultivators and Dao cultivators, so I never had the chance. Now that I've finally met Fairy Hong Xia, I'm sure you live up to your reputation. In the 3 kingdoms of cultivation, I'm afraid there's no other woman as outstanding as Fairy Hong Xia. I don't dare. Fairy Hong Xia saw that although the young man looked young, his cultivation had already reached 2nd grade sword transformation realm. She did not dare to slight him and hurriedly bowed in return. I'm nothing but an undeserved reputation. After cultivating bitterly for close to 1,000 years, I'm still an early-stage nascent soul realm cultivator. How can I compare to you? You look young, but you're already a 2nd grade sword transformation realm cultivator. Hee, I'm the one whose undeserved reputation. Yi Shixiang hurriedly said humbly, my aptitude cannot be compared to Fairy Hong Xia's. If I wasn't the young master of the Yi clan and was born with the convenience of cultivation, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be a sword transformation realm cultivator. It's indeed young Master Yi. When Fairy Hong Xia heard this, her face revealed a smile that resembled an epiphyllum. She said, I've received Junior Brother Zhao's message saying that the Yi clan has the intention to form an alliance with my Kai clan. I'm a little surprised. My Kai clan is not well known in the country of Shi. I wonder why the Yi clan would want to form an alliance with my Kai clan. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5083. Fairy is indeed a competent patriarch. You haven't even said a few words and you've already brought up the family's matters. I really admire you. Yi Shixiang laughed and said, compared to Fairy, this one is much more lazy. If it wasn't for Xiao Mao saying that the world situation has changed greatly and that us aristocratic families need to adapt to the trend and form many alliances, this one wouldn't even remember to do something for the clan. Therefore, I'm very concerned about the alliance between the Yi family and Kai family. In order to not cause Fairy to misunderstand, I've specially chosen Century City as the location for the discussion. I wonder if Fairy is satisfied? Fairy Hong Xia looked at Century City on the other side of the bridge and replied neither haughtily nor humbly, as long as there's sincerity, anywhere is fine. Good. Yi Shixiang clapped his hands and said, with Fairy's words, I'm relieved. I can finally do something for my Yi family. Thank you, Fairy, for your help. Fairy, please. Fairy Hong Xia flew down from the flying boat and nodded at Xiao Mao. Xiao Mao originally wanted to go up and greet her, but when he saw Fairy Hong Xia land on the bridge, he hurriedly stopped and bowed in midair. Little brother greets senior sister. Fairy Hong Xia raised her hand to signal Xiao Mao to get up and asked, how have you been recently? I'm all right. Xiao Mao smiled bitterly. Other than not having a baby, everything is fine. Fairy Hong Xia smiled. Not all of one's pursuits are cultivation. If you only think about having a baby, you might not be able to have one. Moreover, your foundation is excellent. If you don't walk the path of having a baby, you can consider other methods. Sigh, senior sister. Xiao Mao replied with a sullen face, little brother is a cultivator. What else can I do if I don't cultivate? If I don't walk the path of having a baby, do I have to walk the path of transforming into a sword? Forget it. Fairy Hong Xia didn't have much experience and couldn't answer him. She shook her head and said, I'm just an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. I can't give you more pointers. At this point, Fairy Hong Xia smiled at Yi Shixiang and said, young Master Yi, if the alliance between the Kai family and the Yi family succeeds, Xiao Mao will be a great contributor. The Yi family can't treat Xiao Mao unfairly. Fairy, don't worry. Yi Shixiang hastily nodded. Fairy might not know the details of my Yi clan right now, but Fairy will understand in the future. My Yi clan's foundation isn't something that ordinary aristocratic families can compare to, so my Yi clan will absolutely not treat anyone who helps my Yi clan unfairly. All right, young master, please. Fairy Hong Xia raised her hand to indicate for Yi Shixiang to go first. Yi Shixiang smiled and stopped being courteous. He activated his sword light and stepped onto the bridge to fly towards Century City. Fairy Hong Xia frowned as she looked at the bridge beneath her feet. She then looked at Xiao Mao and the rest who were standing respectfully at the side, not daring to approach. She turned her head and instructed, "All of you, keep the flying boat and follow Xiao Mao over." "Yes, Patriarch." A few cultivators responded and alighted from the flying boat. They all came over to greet Xiao Mao. Judging from the expressions on their faces, they seemed to be very familiar with him. As Fairy Hong Xia flew past, the bridge flew like a colorful sparrow and slowly retracted. When Yi Shixiang accompanied Fairy Hong Xia into Sky Patrol City, the bridge also fell into Sky Patrol City. The city gates were closed, the light was extinguished, and the night was deep. The wind was violent, the snow was heavy, and the storm in the sky was brewing to strike. Xiao Huan naturally did not know that he had already missed the opportunity to meet Fairy Hong Xia. He brought Yuanya and flew away. The snowflakes gradually lessened, and the first rays of the morning sun had also arrived. Xiao Hua loved the moment when the sun first rose. At that moment, everything between heaven and earth seemed to be brand new. Moreover, as he flew, the rays of light were born everywhere. Every ray of light was filled with joy and warmth of welcome. Xiao Hua was looking at the foothills in the distance, wanting to say something to Yuanya. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and looked into the distance with some surprise. He said curiously, "It's really strange. Why are they together again?" "Master?" Yuanya smiled. "Could it be that you've met an acquaintance again?" "That's right." Xiao Hua looked in that direction with a smile. "This Dawn Rain continent is where I used to cultivate. I even participated in an extremely famous sword Dao battle here, so I know a lot of cultivators. Look, I've met a few more while flying. It's just that I'm a little hesitant. Should I go down and meet them or stay here and watch the situation develop?" "Disciple will follow wherever master goes." Yuanya didn't have any good suggestions and only answered casually, "Let's go down." Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, "However, I want to hide my cultivation and test some people's reactions. I can also settle some karma while I'm at it." "All right," Yuanya said and used the Fortune Gate's secret technique to suppress his cultivation to the nascent soul realm. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Nascent soul realm cultivators are masters on the Dawn Rain continent. With your cultivation, who else can I test?" Unfortunately, Yuanya also smiled bitterly and said, "Master, this is the lowest level disciple can suppress. Why don't you seal disciples' cultivation first?" "It seems like that's the only way." Xiao Hua smiled slightly. His hands moved and several seals entered Yuanya's body, suppressing Yuanya's cultivation from the verge of 8th grade to early gold core realm. "Ha!" Xiao Hua looked around and said with a smile, "There's no other way. Only gold core realm cultivators can be master's disciple." While he was speaking, Xiao Hua's cultivation also fell rapidly. It fell to early nascent soul realm before it stopped. "Master?" Yuanya curled his lips and said, "Your acquaintance is actually a nascent soul realm cultivator? This kind of cultivator, do you still want to test him?" Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and said, "Because this involves a person's life and death. Master can't not treat this seriously. Let's go. I hope this person can change a little in these few hundred years." Yuanya followed Xiao Hua and flew towards the east. After a meal, he saw a flying boat flying out of the morning sun. There were 3 cultivators standing on the flying boat. Xiao Hua stopped in midair and saw the flying boat getting closer and closer. Although he had already seen the people coming with his divine sense, when he saw them with his eyes, the corners of his eyes couldn't help but moisten. At the bow of the flying boat was a white-haired late gold core realm old man. This old man's face was full of wrinkles and he looked quite old. However, standing on the flying boat, he was still as straight as a rock. Behind the old man was a beautiful woman. She looked to be in her 20s, but her cultivation was also in the middle gold core realm. As for the cultivator steering the boat, he was only in the foundation establishment realm. The flying boat glided through the air lightly, raising a beautiful arc. The old man's eyes were a little blurred. He swept past the mountain ridge on the left and didn't see Xiao Hua stopping in midair. On the contrary, the woman was looking in another direction. However, the moment Xiao Hua stopped, she suddenly turned her head and saw Xiao Hua's smiling face. But what was strange was that when the woman saw Xiao Hua, It was as if she didn't see him. She only slightly raised the corner of her mouth and a bitter smile appeared in her eyes. Then she looked in another direction. However, right when the woman's bright eyes were moving about, she suddenly came to an understanding and hurriedly looked at Xiaohua again. When her gaze descended into Xiaohua's slightly red eyes, the woman's eyes suddenly dilated while absolute wild joy surged into her heart. The woman couldn't help but raise her hands to cover her mouth, and then 2 streams of tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Xiaohua! The woman was almost moaning and almost roaring. She barely managed to squeeze Xiaohua's name from her heart into her mouth. Oh! The old man in the lead was startled. He withdrew his sad gaze and whispered, "What's wrong?" Xiaohua! The woman bit her lips so hard that they turned white. She stared at Xiaohua and pointed at him as she spoke hatefully. Xiaohua! Only then did the old man look in the direction Sun Shu was pointing at. At this moment, Xiaohua had already flown over. He bowed from afar and said, "Martial Uncle Zhen Qing, hello." Xiaohua, you are really Xiaohua? Zhen Qing was obviously very surprised. He looked at Xiaohua in disbelief as if he didn't dare to recognize him. However, in just a few breaths, Zhen Qing's figure flashed and actually flew out from the flying boat. He rushed in front of Xiaohua and scolded, "Child, where have you been all these years?" Martial uncle? Zhen Qing was the first disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect that Xiaohua saw after returning to the Dawn Rain continent. Zhen Qing's words immediately pulled out the memories from a long time ago from the depths of his mind. He couldn't hold it in anymore and called out, "Martial uncle," as tears rolled down his face. "It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back." Zhen Qing's tears also fell. He patted Xiaohua's shoulder and said, "It's good that you're back alive. Don't cry." "Yes, disciple understands." Xiaohua sniffed. It really felt like he had returned to the time when he was a low-level disciple. He replied in a low voice, "Senior martial brother." Sun Shu naturally had also flown over. At this time, he stopped crying. His pair of red eyes were like a rabbit's as he stared at Xiaohua, afraid that he would suddenly disappear again. He only called out, "Senior martial brother," before his mouth was blocked by the excitement of meeting again after a long time. He couldn't say another word. Junior Zhen Yu greets martial uncle. The Foundation establishment disciple kept the flying boat and stood at the side. Although he didn't know Xiaohua's cultivation level, he hurriedly took the opportunity to bow and greet him after hearing Zhen Qing and Sun Shu's greeting. He quickly get up. There's no need to be polite. Xiaohua sniffed again and raised his hand to help Zhen Yu up. He said, "This Xiao hasn't seen a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect for a long time. I can't help but forget myself." Yes. Zhen Yu smiled and said, "It's always like this when meeting after a long time." Then, Zhen Yu looked at Yuan Ye, who was behind Xiaohua, and bowed, "Martial uncle? Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and..." Chapter 5084. Yuan Ye clearly didn't know how to address this little Foundation establishment cultivator. He could only raise his hand to help Zhen Yu up and said indifferently, "This? Get up." Zhen Qing and Sun Shu naturally only had Xiaohua in their eyes. Now that they heard Zhen Yu mention him, they finally noticed Yuan Ye. Zhen Qing hurriedly smiled and said, "May I know how to address this fellow Taoist?" This. Xiaohua was a bit embarrassed. He regretted that he didn't introduce Yuan Ye earlier. He coughed and said, "Martial uncle, this is Junior's disciple. His name is Yuan Ye." Zhen Qing and Sun Shu weren't particularly surprised, but Zhen Yu was shocked. He unconsciously glanced at Xiaohua again. Suddenly, he seemed to have realized something and exclaimed, "You... Xiaohua? Taoist Xiao?" After saying that, Zhen Yu disregarded everything and knelt down in the air. He kowtowed and said, "Junior Zhen Yu greets Taoist Xiao." Hearing Zhen Yu call him Taoist Xiao, Xiaohua immediately understood. He smiled and helped Zhen Yu up. "Get up. I'm also an ordinary cultivator. I'm not as noble as you think I am." Daoist Xiao, Daoist Xiao. Zhen Yu was clearly very excited. He even talked a bit too much. Although he had already gotten up, he still said, "You don't know. Ever since I was born, I've always heard about Daoist Xiao from my father. If it wasn't for Daoist Xiao, nearly 2,000 people in the Jade Cloud Ridge would have starved to death." Seeing that Zhen Yu was going to be long-winded, Xiao Hua hurriedly said, "Zhen Yu, this is something from many years ago." "Yes, it's been many years. However, according to what this humble one knows, until now, the grains used in the vicinity of the Jade Cloud Ridge were still bestowed by Reverend Xiao back then." Zhen Yu continued speaking persistently. However, when he reached this point, he saw Zhen Qing frowning slightly. He hurriedly stopped speaking and said with a smile, "This humble one will stop speaking. This humble one is truly too excited. This humble one has finally met Reverend Xiao, whom this humble one has been praying for day and night." After Zhen Yu retreated to the side, Zhen Qing said with a bitter smile, "Xiao Hua, I was so happy to see you that I forgot that you were already a nascent soul cultivator when you left the Imperial Thunder sect. This poor Taoist should be calling you senior now." "Martial uncle, your words are too much for this junior." Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and said, "I'm well aware of how you treat me. Not to mention my current cultivation base, even if I reach the Grand Ascension stage, I'm still a junior in front of you." "Sai, forget it. Do as you wish." Zhen Qing sighed and said, "This old man's lifespan is about to end. You can call me whatever you want." "Sai, that's right. Senior's luck is a little bad." Xiao Hua looked at Zhen Qing and felt a little helpless. When Xiao Hua entered the Imperial Thunder sect, Zhen Qing was already an early gold core cultivator. It had already been more than 600 years, but Zhen Qing was still only a late gold core cultivator. Now, looking at her lifespan, she only had a few years left. It was really impossible for her to have a baby in this lifetime. Soon after, Xiao Hua looked at Sun Shu. Sun Shu was already at the middle gold core stage. It seemed that his progress in the past few hundred years had been smooth. However, in front of Zhen Qing, Xiao Hua didn't say anything. Sun Shu only nodded at Xiao Hua. With Zhen Yu's interruption, Yuan Ye didn't greet him. Xiao Hua didn't mention it again. He just smiled and asked, "Martial uncle, where are you going? It doesn't seem like you're going to the Imperial Thunder sect." Zhen Qing replied, "Sai, why should I go back to the Imperial Thunder sect? This old man is going to the Blazing Fire Mountain." "Blazing Fire Mountain?" Xiao Hua was slightly stunned and asked curiously, "Why is Martial Uncle going to the Blazing Fire Mountain?" "It's a long story." Zhen Qing smiled bitterly and said, "This old man was originally traveling outside and wanted to see if I could find an opportunity during the last period of time. However, after a few years, I received a message from the sect, asking all the disciples to return to the sect for training. However, just as this old man was about to return to the sect, I received a message from Hall Master Zhen Sheng, asking this old man to take a few disciples to the Blazing Fire Mountain on his behalf. He said that he was returning a favor for him." Hee. In the end, Martial Uncle Zhen Qing intercepted I and Zhen Yu on the way and brought us to the Blazing Fire Mountain. Sun Shu smiled like a flower and said, "As for why we are going to the Blazing Fire Mountain, we don't know. We only know that when we are near the Blazing Fire Mountain, we will release a messaging talisman and someone called the Fire Qilin will come and pick us up." Hearing about the Blazing Fire Mountain and the Fire Qilin, Xiao Hua seemed to understand something. He thought for a while and said with a smile, "Martial Uncle, although Hall Master Zhen Sheng didn't say it clearly in the message, I think Martial Uncle should know something about it, right?" "Sai, what else can it be?" Zhen Qing sighed and said, "Since the last Sword Dao War, the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain died in the Sky Patrol City. The Blazing Fire Mountain was divided into 3 factions. They fought with each other to snatch spirit stones and other things. In the past few hundred years, countless people have died. The Blazing Fire Mountain has now become an ordinary sect. I also know about the Fire Qilin. He is the grandson of one of the 3 branches of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Previously, he was not conspicuous and was doted on by the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Later, those who were more senior than him died, and his branch recommended him. If I'm not wrong, this time, he is going to mediate and help. Hall Master Zhen is now a middle nascent soul grandmaster and represents the Shaolei Hall of the Imperial Thunder Sect. It's not appropriate for him to be involved in this matter, so I am going to do it. Sun Shu said with a smile. The current blazing fire mountain is no longer the same as before. Cultivators in the late Gold Core realm are rare. Martial Uncle Zhen is enough. Sun Shu looked at Xiaohua and said in a low voice, not long after Martial Brother was expelled from the Imperial Thunder Sect, the former sect master Qian Lei came out of seclusion. Former sect master? Xiaohua was stunned and asked curiously, isn't Qian Lei the sect master now? Sun Shu nodded and said, yes. When Martial Brother left the Imperial Thunder Sect, Senior Qian Lei had entered the late nascent soul realm. About 70 years ago, Senior Qian Lei failed to break through to the severed divinity realm and died. Now, the middle nascent soul realm fairy Xianhua is the sect master. Sun Shu hesitated because fairy Xianhua was the one who expelled Xiaohua from the Imperial Thunder Sect. He was afraid that Xiaohua would bear a grudge. Sure enough, hearing that fairy Xianhua was the sect master, Xiaohua sneered. Seeing Xiaohua's reaction, Sun Shu hurriedly said, Martial Brother, I don't know where you have been for the past several hundred years. However, Senior Qian Lei had just come out of seclusion and issued a pardon order, asking Thunder Meng Dao Master to chase after you with the pardon order. He wanted to take you back into the sect, but Thunder Meng Dao Master couldn't find you. As for the specific situation, I'm afraid only Senior Nascent Soul Realm knows. However, Martial Brother, the current Imperial Thunder Sect, has declined. You are so powerful, and there are fortune gates all over the 3 countries. I think you should return to the Imperial Thunder Sect. If Master Qian Lei was still the sect master, or if Reverend Lei Meng was still the sect master, Xiaohua might have considered Sun Shu's suggestion. However, after hearing that fairy Xianhua had become the sect master, how could Xiaohua still return to Imperial Thunder Sect? He smiled and said, Martial Brother has just returned. I want to see an old friend and reminisce about the past. Let's talk about this later. All right. Sun Shu also understood that spilled water couldn't be undone. He forced a smile and said, where is Martial Brother going? I will send Martial Brother off. Oh, I don't have a fixed place. Xiaohua smiled and said, it's just that I haven't seen the scenery of the state of Shi for a long time. Hee, that's great. Sun Shu pursed his lips and said, if Martial Brother has nothing to do, why don't you take a trip to the Ardent Fire Mountain with Martial Uncle Zhenqing? With Martial Brother there, we can be at ease. Hearing this, Zhenqing's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, good. Come with this old man. Several hundred years have passed. Perhaps not many people can remember the mysterious nameless sword battle. However, you were already a nascent soul realm cultivator at that time. I'm afraid you are even more powerful now. You can give this old man some courage. All right. Xiaohua nodded and said, Junior has nothing to do anyway. I'll accompany Martial Uncle. That's right. Zhenqing pulled Xiaohua's robe and ordered Zhenyu to release the flying boat. He said, in a few years, even if you want to accompany this old man, I'm afraid you won't be able to find me. Sun Shu's face was also full of smiles. He turned to look at Yuanya and said, Yuanya, what's your master's cultivation now? Late nascent soul realm? This. Yuanya rubbed his nose and thought for a moment before saying, Martial Uncle, you should ask Master about this matter. Sun Shu smiled and said, Senior Brother likes to keep a low profile. From what you said, even if he isn't late nascent soul realm, I'm afraid he isn't far from it. No wonder he doesn't want to return to Imperial Thunder Sect. Oh, right, you can just call me Sun Shu. I call you Senior Brother because we used to be Senior Brother and Junior Sister. I'm used to calling you that. You and I are both Golden Core Realm cultivators. You can just call me fellow Taoist. Alright. Yuanya didn't stand on ceremony and nodded in agreement. Seeing that everyone had boarded the flying boat, Zhenyu shouted and urged the flying boat to continue flying in the direction of Ardent Fire Mountain. Xiaohua stood beside Zhenqing. He stole a glance at Zhen Qing's white hair and asked in a low voice, Martial Uncle, Junior remembers that when I left Imperial Thunder Sect, didn't I tell Martial Uncle about Sun Qian? But, alas, it's all in the past. It's meaningless to mention it again. Zhen Qing's wrinkled face showed bitterness. He waved his hand to stop Xiao Hua from continuing. He asked again, but you, where have you been for the past few hundred years? Looking at your cultivation, it seems to be even more powerful than before. Oh, not to mention you, even this disciple of yours is more powerful than this old man. Junior obtained a little opportunity. Xiao Hua replied, now, I'm indeed more powerful than before, but, in other words, they had reached here. Woo-woo. The sound of wind whistling could be heard in the distant sky. Soon after, the pressure of an early nascent soul stage cultivator surged out like a gale and swept towards the flying boat. Wherever the pressure passed, rocks were overturned and trees were toppled. The brilliance of the flying boat was also rapidly extinguished. Zhen Qing, Sun Shu, and Zhen Yu naturally couldn't resist the aura. Zhen Yu collapsed on the flying boat and let it roll over. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 5085. Who is it? Xiao Hua pretended to roar and released his spiritual pressure. The two spiritual pressures collided with each other. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions sounded and ripples appeared in the void nearby. Xiao Hua then used his magic power again to stabilize the flying boat. With Xiao Hua's spiritual pressure resisting, Zhen Qing and Sun Shu struggled to stand up. They looked at the sky and saw another flying boat. There were more than 10 people standing on the flying boat. In the front were a male and female early nascent soul stage cultivators. The male cultivator was middle-aged and wore armor. He held a spear-like magic treasure in his hand. As for the female cultivator, she was only in her 20s. She was as beautiful as a flower. Her big watery eyes were looking at Xiao Hua and Zhen Qing with surprise and disdain on her face. Wasn't this female cultivator Qin Yi of Buried Flower Manor? Seeing Qin Yi appear, Zhen Qing was a bit angry. He raised his hand and pointed at her. Qin Yi, what are you doing? I already told you that I don't want to see you again in this life. Chen Yi glanced at Zhen Qing indifferently and said, Zhen Qing, the past is the past. There's no need to mention it again. To be honest, I didn't expect to meet you here today. But since we've already met, then why don't we settle our grudges here? It seems that us also includes me? Xiao Hua looked at Chen Yi and said coldly, I wonder what grudges you have with me? Ha! Chen Yi laughed and withdrew the pressure of an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. She looked even more beautiful after being pregnant. She laughed and said, there are so many people in this world who think too highly of themselves. You are the famous Taoist Xiao of Dawn Rain Continent, but in the eyes of my Tongmu city, you are nothing. The grudges between you and me, don't you know? Now that you've walked into the trap, everything that happened before, let's settle it today. At this point, Chen Yi looked into the distance and shouted, Bitch, why don't you come out? Do you want me to capture you personally before you show yourself? Zhen Qing heard and felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly looked in that direction. Sure enough, a faint brilliance flashed in the distant sky. Sun Qian, who had a slightly elegant temperament and a stubborn look, appeared. At this time, Sun Qian was only in her 30s. There were no more scars on her face. She had a noble and pure temperament, and had a unique charm. Seeing Sun Qian appear, Zhen Qing hurriedly shouted, You? Why are you here? Why aren't you running? Alas! Sun Qian let out a long sigh as she looked at Zhen Qing with a complicated expression. After that, she flew in front of Zhen Qing and stood in front of Zhen Qing. Facing Chen Yi, Sun Qian said coldly, Chen Yi, actually, the thing between you and Zhen Qing is nothing serious. You only need to tell Qing Liuzi the details, damn it. Without waiting for Sun Qian to finish speaking, Chen Yi cursed in a low voice, Sun Qian, you dare to plant spies in Tongmu City. It was as if Sun Qian was not facing a nascent soul cultivator. She said coldly, "If I didn't, how would I know that you wanted to kill Zhen Qing to avoid suspicion?" Ah. Chen Yi's face suddenly changed. She laughed and said, "Sun Qian, is your informant Jing Chong?" Do. Suddenly, Sun Qian seemed to realize something. She raised her hand and pointed at Sun Qian. "You're too cunning. You're killing 3 birds with 1 stone. You want to kill Zhen Qing, Jing Chong and me at the same time?" Hee hee. Chen Yi smiled and nodded. "Sun Qian, you've been fighting with me for a lifetime. But now, your last sentence is the most correct. I wanted to praise you, but I didn't expect Taoist Master Shao to walk into the trap. My plan of killing 3 birds with 1 stone has become killing 4 birds with 1 stone. You're still wrong." AI Zhen Qing. Hearing this, Sun Qian turned her head slightly. Looking at Zhen Qing's white hair, she smiled bitterly. "It's all my fault. If I just backed off a little and sent you a message. There's no need for that." Zhen Qing looked at the dozen cultivators on the Twilight Tong City's flying boat surrounding them. The early-stage nascent soul-stage male cultivator stood beside Chen Yi with a spear magic artifact in his hand. The fear in her heart gradually disappeared and she said faintly, "I don't have much time left to live. Today I was able to see her true face. This trip was not in vain." Sun Qian looked at Zhen Qing. She bit her lips and said word by word, "Being able to die with you, this life of mine was not made in vain." Chen Yi's face twisted. It was as if she couldn't bear to see others get better. She smiled maliciously and said, "Then all of you can die together." After saying this, Chen Yi raised her hand and was about to give the order. Sun Qian held Zhen Qing's hand. She looked at Xiao Hua apologetically and said, "Taoist Master Xiao, I didn't thank you back then. Today, I've implicated you. I can only say sorry." It's fine. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "My matter is really nothing. The matter between you and Martial Uncle Zhen is more important. Previously, I wanted to ask you what you've been thinking for the past hundreds of years. Why did you waste hundreds of years? But now that I see that you're willing to live and die with Martial Uncle Zhen, I feel that, as long as there's true love, as long as we know each other, there's no need to care about time." At this point, Xiao Hua looked coldly at Chen Yi and said, "Unlike some people who have long abandoned their human emotions. For power, they sold their soul and body." Ah. Chen Yi looked at Xiao Hua and laughed loudly. "Taoist Master Xiao, so what if I sold my soul and body? Look at the 2 of them." In the past, their cultivation was higher than mine. But now, they're only golden core stage cultivators. Each of them is struggling at death's door, waiting for the end of their lifespans. As for me, I've already become a nascent soul stage cultivator. When their corpses turn into ashes, I'll still be living freely in Twilight Tong City. Yes, you seem to be living freely, but in reality? Whether you're a walking corpse or not, I'm afraid only you know, right? Xiao Hua mocked. The corner of Chen Yi's mouth curled up in disdain as she said, "Xiao Hua, don't flaunt your sharp tongue. No matter how fierce your words are, you won't be able to escape today's calamity." Xiao Hua was shocked. "How did I offend you? You actually want to take my life? Taoist Master Xiao, why are you pretending to be confused?" Chen Yi sneered. "Do you know how powerful the Fortune Gate is in the 3 countries? Everyone respects you, Taoist Master Xiao. If my Twilight Tong City captures the real Taoist Master Xiao, then wouldn't the Fortune Gate of the 3 countries be controlled by my Twilight Tong City? Do you think I'll cooperate with you?" Xiao Hua said sarcastically. The corner of Chen Yi's mouth twitched, and she said decisively, "If you don't cooperate, then die." A dead Taoist Master Xiao naturally can't compare to a living Taoist Master Xiao. However, a Fortune Gate controlled by someone is the biggest threat to my Twilight Tong City. With that said, Chen Yi didn't delay any longer, and she ordered, "Taoist I Ching, you and I will work together to capture Xiao Hua. Disciples, kill everyone else. Don't let anyone else know about this." Several disciples answered in unison. They circulated their magic power and charged towards Xiao Hua. AI. Xiao Hua sighed helplessly as he looked at the group of Twilight Tong City's disciples and Chen Yi. He said, "It's easy to change mountains and rivers, but it's hard to change one's nature. Even 600 years is not enough to fill a person's greed. Since greed is hard to fill, then there's no need to fill it. You do it." Xiao Hua pointed his finger at Yuan Ye, and a shadow of light fell into Yuan Ye's body. Kacha! A thunderous sound came from Yuan Ye's body. Chen Yi had already discovered Zhen Qing and Sun Chen's presence, so she had a plan to settle this old grudge, so as to avoid a rift between her and Twilight Tong City's city lord Qing Liuzi. Xiao Hua's appearance was indeed unexpected. Others might not know Xiao Hua's strength, but Chen Yi did know a little. Whether it was the terrifying phoenix in the sword battle or Wu Ming in the nascent soul realm, Chen Yi was quite wary of both of them. However, Chen Yi wasn't willing to give up such an excellent opportunity. She and Taoist I Ching from Dantree's city secretly observed Xiao Hua. The two of them discovered that Xiao Hua was only at the early nascent soul stage. Chen Yi alone might not be his match, but if the two of them joined forces, it was very likely that they could capture Xiao Hua. Of course, the impression Xiao Hua had left on Chen Yi was too deep. Chen Yi was still hesitant, but just as Chen Yigong had said, a fortune gate controlled by someone was more terrifying than an uncontrolled fortune gate. After weighing the pros and cons, the two of them still chose to attack. Xiao Hua's calmness did not exceed Chen Yi's expectations, but she really did not understand why Xiao Hua did not attack her, but instead turned around to attack the golden core cultivator beside her. However, when the thunderous sound came from Yuan Ye's body, an even more majestic pressure soared into the sky, and then rushed out in all directions like a flood. Yuan Ye's aura rose steadily, and in a few breaths' time, he was already as tall as a mountain, and his figure was indomitable like a demon god. Chen Yi finally came to her senses, and her face turned ashen in an instant. Compared to Yuan Ye's aura, her nascent soul aura couldn't even compare to a trickle. Damn it, run! Chen Yi cursed under her breath. She didn't have time to give an order, and her figure was about to teleport away. Unfortunately, in front of Yuan Ye, who had stepped into the 8th grade, Chen Yi, who had just broken through to the 4th grade, was not even comparable to a child. How could she possibly escape from Yuan Ye's hands? Seeing that the void around her had been sealed, and she couldn't see even a trace of heaven and earth's spiritual energy, and her body was as heavy as 10,000 caddies, she couldn't even move. Chen Yi's heart turned cold, and her thoughts raced as she shouted, "Taoist Xiao, the merciful and compassionate Taoist Xiao, this servant knows her wrongs. This servant will not dare to do it again, please spare this servant." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a tip, and... Chapter 5086. Xiao Hua and the others heard Chen Yi's words clearly. Xiao Hua shook his head slightly and said word by word, "Some people can be forgiven, but some people can't be forgiven. Forgiving a good person who made a mistake can reap good results, but forgiving a bad person who came to his senses can only reap bad results." Chen Yi still wanted to argue, but Yuan Ye had already taken out his devil spear. Woo! Woo! Devil Qi surged out amidst the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves. It had already covered 100 miles around them. In the blink of an eye, all the evil Qi, all the schemes, all the grudges, and all the schemes turned into nothing. The dragon-like devil spear was retracted, and the thousands of layers of devil Qi were also absorbed into the devil spear. Under the devil Qi, Zhen Qing and the others were revealed. Yuan Ye's spear had already shocked them. They had never thought that there would be such powerful cultivators in the world. Those were two nascent soul masters, dozens of Golden Core Realm and Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. They were much stronger than an ordinary sect. In just one spear strike, they had all turned into ashes. I've let you be stained with blood again. Xiao Hua looked at Yuan Ye retracting his devil spear and suppressing his cultivation. Xiao Hua sighed and said, "But if I were to do it, I wouldn't be able to do it. Master is benevolent and doesn't like blood. Moreover, they are too weak. How can I let Master do it? Let disciple do it for you." Yuan Ye said nonchalantly, this kind of slaughter is also beneficial to disciples' cultivation. Master understands. Xiaohua said and once again sealed Yuan Ye's cultivation to the Golden Core realm. Taoist Master. It really is Taoist Master Xiao. The unparalleled Taoist Master Xiao. Unlike Zhen Qing and the others who were panicking, Zhen Yu was filled with reverence. He couldn't help but exclaim, with Taoist Master, our fortune gate will definitely be the number one. Suddenly, Zhen Yu realized that it was inappropriate and quickly shut his mouth. He looked at Zhen Qing awkwardly. Xiaohua frowned and looked at Zhen Yu. What do you mean? Are you a spy sent by the fortune gate to the Imperial Lightning Sect? Zhen Yu hurriedly knelt down and said, Tao Master, Junior is indeed a disciple of the Imperial Lightning Sect, not a disciple of the Fortune Gate. However, this Junior's family has received Taoist Master's grace, and this Junior's family regards Taoist Master as a living Holy Spirit. Although this Junior cannot enter the Fortune Gate, this Junior, like many other cultivators, regards himself as a Fortune Gate disciple. See. Xiaohua suddenly realized something and sucked in a breath of cold air. He already understood why Qin Yi, who clearly knew that he was Xiaohua and didn't have any confidence, insisted on attacking him. Even if she couldn't capture him, she still wanted to kill him. Senior. Sun Qian hurriedly said, please don't blame Zhen Yu. This situation happened in the Dao cultivation sects of the 3 cultivation nations. No, it even happened in the sword sect of the Huan nation. After all, enlightened master's grace back then spread throughout the entire world. Xiaohua nodded and said, this old man understands. If it was someone else, perhaps they wouldn't have so much momentum, but this old man's cultivation method is a bit special. At this point, Xiaohua suddenly realized that something was wrong and hurriedly said with a smile, Sun Qian, you don't have to call me senior, just call me Taoist Xiao. Yes, Taoist Xiao. A shy look appeared on Sun Qian's pretty face. However, she did not loosen her grip on Zhen Qing's hand. Sun Qian had used her strength as her armor and stubbornness to protect herself all her life. When she tore her mask off, she cherished the affection she had just received more than anyone else. Senior brother. Sun Shu said with a slight groan. Aren't you too low-key? I thought you were at most a cultivator in the middle or late nascent soul stage, but I didn't expect your disciple to be so powerful. I don't even know what realm he is at. What realm are you at? Xiaohua looked at Sun Shu with a smile and said, is it important what realm I am at? The important thing is that no matter what realm I am at, I am still your senior brother, okay? I like that. Sun Shu giggled and said, if. Unfortunately, just as Sun Shu said those 2 words, the expression in her eyes changed and she didn't continue. Instead, she changed the topic and said, if senior brother gives me some more benefits, I will like it even more. Isn't that simple? Xiaohua didn't hesitate and took out a storage pouch and handed it to her. This is for you. Senior brother, I was just joking. Sun Shu was naturally joking. She wanted to cover up what she almost said just now, but seeing that Xiaohua took it seriously, she was a little embarrassed. Xiaohua smiled and said, even if you didn't say it, I would still give it to you. We haven't seen each other for so many years, no matter what, there should be some greeting gift, right? Then thank you senior brother. Sun Shu and Xiaohua had experience together, so she naturally knew Xiaohua's temper. She didn't hold back and casually took the storage pouch and put it away without looking at it. Xiaohua then looked at Zhen Qing, who had been silent all this time, and thought for a moment before saying, Martial Uncle, Junior won't give you cultivation techniques or golden cores for the time being. Junior will give you some spiritual items to replenish your lifespan first. Once your lifespan is replenished, Junior will help you conceive a baby. After you conceive a baby, everything will be fine. As he said that, Xiaohua took out a few immortal peaches and gave them to Zhen Qing, Sun Qian, and even Sun Shu and Zhen Yu. Spiritual Master, what is this? Zhen Yu held the immortal peach and was a little puzzled. He asked, this thing can replenish my lifespan? This is an immortal peach. Xiaohua explained, it can replenish some of your lifespan, but it varies from person to person. Of course, you don't need it now, so you might as well keep it first and use it later. Your task now is to clean up the storage pouches and flying boats of the cultivators of Tongmu City and hand them over to Martial Uncle Zhen Qing. But Zhen Yu was overjoyed when he heard that. He kept the immortal peach and happily went to clean up the mess. Should I keep it too? Sun Shu thought for a moment and said, after all, I have already taken the rejuvenation pill before. Xiao Hua said in a low voice, I have a lot of these things here. Just treat it as a taste of something new. Xiao Hua's words made Sun Shu recall some memories. She held back the redness in her eyes and nodded, yes, senior martial brother. Then she took a bite of the immortal peach and let the sweet juice and the joy of reunion seep into her heart. Zhen Qing looked at Xiao Hua with a complicated gaze. Back then, he was the first to discover that Xiao Hua was Wu Ming. That kind of shock hadn't happened for hundreds of years. Now that he met Xiao Hua again, the shock was 100 times stronger than before. He didn't know how to face this high-level cultivator who was so respectful to him. Xiao Hua's disciple could easily kill nascent soul Chen Yi. Xiao Hua's strength, perhaps even the Imperial Thunder Sect master couldn't compare to him. Of course, other than being shocked, Zhen Qing also felt guilty about Chen Yi's death. Zhen Qing was an indecisive person, but at the same time, he was also a sentimental person. Because of this, he had delayed himself and delayed Sun Qian. Now Chen Yi died in front of him. In an instant, all the memories of his life with Chen Yi flooded his mind. No one knew Zhen Qing better than Sun Qian. Sun Qian didn't say anything and just silently looked at Zhen Qing. This was the so-called deep hatred of love. After half a cup of tea, Zhen Yu returned and respectfully handed over some storage bags. He said, Martial ancestor, oh? Zhen Qing came back to his senses and responded. He looked at the storage bags and asked, Zhen Yu, where are the corpses of the cultivators in Twilight Tong City? Why are they gone? Martial ancestor. Zhen Yu hurriedly replied, disciple didn't see any corpses. There were only storage bags, magic tools, flying boats and other things. Martial uncle, don't worry. Xiao Hua hurriedly explained. Although the corpses are gone, Yuanya only killed them and didn't erase their primordial spirits. The souls of these cultivators have already entered the cycle of reincarnation. Sigh, all right, I understand. Zhen Qing sighed and said to Zhen Yu, these are all Taoist Zhaos. It's better to let Taoist Xiao take them. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Martial ancestor, the so-called knot in one's heart is something that can't be removed. Since that's the case, it's better to put it aside. It's useless to think too much about it. As for these mortal things, I gave them to Martial ancestor. Martial ancestor didn't like them, so I'll let Zhen Yu take them first and distribute them to Martial ancestor's disciples later. And we'll do as Taoist Xiao said. Sun Qian couldn't stand it anymore. She clenched her hand and said, let Zhen Yu take them first. Yes, I understand. When Zhen Yu heard that, he happily kept the storage pouch. Sun Shu urged, Martial ancestor, quick, this immortal peach is very good. As he said that, Sun Shu casually looked through the storage bags that Xiao Hua gave him. When he looked through them, he was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Xiao Hua noticed it and turned to look at Sun Shu. He nodded his head slightly. Sun Shu also smiled and carefully hid the storage bags. Since Zhen Qing didn't eat the immortal peach, Sun Qian naturally wouldn't eat it either. Although Zhen Qing's mood wasn't good, he still ate the immortal peach. Zhen Qing's cultivation was shallow and he couldn't feel that his lifespan was being replenished. However, when the immortal peach entered his mouth, a warm current rushed through his body. The warm feeling came from his heart. Zhen Qing, Sun Qian exclaimed, your hair, what's wrong? Zhen Qing didn't expect the immortal peach's effect to be so obvious. He didn't react for a moment and asked in astonishment, the heavens have eyes. Sun Qian was so happy that she cried. She hurriedly waved her right hand and a mirror appeared. In the mirror, Zhen Qing's white hair turned black and the wrinkles on his forehead also calmed down. Of course, after a few breaths, his hair stopped turning black and returned to the familiar white color. But even so, Xiaohua understood that Zhen Qing's lifespan had been replenished. As long as Zhen Qing stepped into the nascent soul realm within 100 years, he wouldn't have a problem living for another 1,000 years. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and... Chapter 5087. Alas, it's no wonder that cultivators risk their lives and use unscrupulous means to advance. Xiaohua sighed with emotion as he inwardly said, the lifespan of an ordinary aura-refining cultivator is only 200 years. When they advance to the foundation-building realm, their lifespan will increase to 400 years. When they advance to the gold core realm, their lifespan will increase to 800 years. When they condense their nascent soul and communicate with heaven and earth, their lifespan will even increase to 2,000 years. In the face of such temptation, who would be able to maintain their Tao heart? Not only that, just as Sun Qian finished speaking, Sun Qian herself was startled. She looked at Zhen Qing in disbelief. Zhen Qing didn't understand. Xiaohua, who was at the side, smiled and said, "Congratulations, fellow Taoist. Since the knot in your heart is gone and your Tao realm has improved, you will definitely be pregnant within 10 years. Is that so?" Zhen Qing smiled and looked at Sun Qian. "Your wish has finally come true. Isn't it because—" Sun Qian was about to reply, but Zhen Qing's body suddenly trembled, and a surprised expression appeared on her face. Xiaohua had no choice but to congratulate him once again. "Congratulations, martial uncle. Since you're able to let go, you'll be able to jump out of this world. Within 10 years, you'll definitely be able to conceive a nascent soul." Sun Qian and Zhen Qing had been trapped in love for a long time, but they couldn't compare to Chen Yi who had severed their love long ago, so they couldn't conceive a baby for a long time. Now that Xiaohua had killed Chen Yi, the knot in their hearts was forcibly broken. Especially, the immortal peaches were the essence of heaven and earth. After the two of them ate the immortal peaches, the laws of heaven and earth had already quietly merged into their genedem. Conceiving a baby was only a matter of time. "Congratulations, martial uncle. Congratulations, martial uncle." Sun Shu and Zhen Yu hurriedly went up to congratulate her. Zhen Qing's character was upright and she had always loved and cared for her disciples. Thus, Zhen Yu and the others congratulated her from the bottom of their hearts. Zhen Qing, who had just escaped death, smiled and helped the two of them up. He smiled and said, "This old man is useless. I haven't had a breakthrough in my cultivation for a long time. You two need to work harder. Don't be like this old man." "Yes, we understand." Sun Shu and Zhen Yu stood up. Zhen Qing then looked at Xiaohua and asked, "Taoist, are you still going with us to the Ardent Fire Mountain?" It seemed like Zhen Qing had already understood that it wasn't a coincidence that Xiaohua had met him. Xiaohua smiled. Since Zhen Qing didn't point it out, he wouldn't explain either. Thus, he replied, "Of course, this junior does indeed have some karma with the Ardent Fire Mountain. This time, I might as well settle it." All right, with Zhenren, this old man has a plan in mind. This time, we won't embarrass the Imperial Thunder Sect. Zhen Qing said with relief. "Senior uncle, please?" Seeing that Zhen Yu had already released the flying boat, Xiaohua hurriedly invited Zhen Qing onto the flying boat. Zhen Qing hesitated for a moment, but she didn't decline. She nodded and pulled Xiaohua onto the flying boat. Sun Qian carefully followed behind. It was rare for someone as stubborn as her to be so obedient. The flying boat once again soared into the sky. Sun Shu asked curiously from the side, "Senior apprentice brother, why do you still have a dispute with the Ardent Fire Mountain? Are they the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain that I met during the Great Sword Battle?" "Oh, it's a long story." Seeing that the airboat was not moving fast, Xiaohua knew that there was still a long way to go before they arrived at the Ardent Fire Mountain. Although he didn't need to talk about the 3 continents, it didn't matter if he told Shui about his experiential learning. Therefore, he told her about his fate with the Ardent Fire Mountain. Since Xiaohua took the initiative to mention Shui, Sun Shu also couldn't avoid it. After Xiaohua finished speaking, Sun Shu probed, "Senior apprentice brother, do you already know about senior apprentice sister?" Xue Xue was a foundation establishment disciple and Wu Hen was a golden core cultivator. Both of them had life spirit tablets in the Imperial Thunder sect. When the two of them died, the Imperial Thunder sect would discover it. Therefore, Sun Shu already knew that Xue Xue was no longer in this world. Then, Xiaohua nodded. Xue Xue died for me. How come I didn't know about it? Senior apprentice sister is really powerful. Sun Shu suddenly understood something and whispered, I can't compare with her. There's no need to compare. Xiaohua smiled and said, everyone is different. Just be yourself. When? Zhen Qing asked. The two of us are the same. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, that day when Junior left the Imperial Thunder sect, Junior discovered that two nascent soul cultivators were chasing Junior. Junior was unable to escape no matter how hard Junior tried. In the end, Master and Xue Xue suddenly appeared and self-detonated to trap the two of them. Junior was able to escape. Zhen Qing frowned. Clearly, she didn't understand why Xue Xue and Wu Hen suddenly appeared. However, Xiaohua was a member of the government. Zhen Qing could not believe his words. Moreover, this involved the two people closest to Xiaohua. Xiaohua definitely wouldn't lie. Therefore, Zhen Qing continued to ask, what about the two nascent soul cultivators? Why were they chasing you? Those two nascent soul cultivators have already fallen. Xiaohua replied. From the beginning to the end, they didn't reveal their identity. Junior doesn't know who they are and also doesn't know why they were chasing Junior. Damn it. Zhen Qing recalled that day when Xiaohua was expelled from the Imperial Thunder sect and was chased by two nascent soul cultivators. Her heart was filled with anger, and she cursed in a low voice. What about now? Sun Qian was also worried about Xiaohua and asked. Xiaohua pursed his lips and smiled. This is the reason why Junior wanted to hide his cultivation. This Junior wants to know, who is it that is so interested in this Junior? Sun Shu said curiously, Senior Brother has already seen those two nascent soul cultivators. With Senior Brother's current strength, it shouldn't be difficult for you to find those two missing nascent soul cultivators, right? And this is of course simple. Xiaohua nodded. However, Senior Brother still has more important things to do. Moreover, this matter, Senior Brother doesn't need to do it personally. Presumably, someone has already investigated it. Senior Brother can just find someone to ask. What Senior Brother wants to do now is to find the mastermind behind these missing nascent soul cultivators. Senior Brother wants to lure the snake out of its hole. Sun Shu understood and said with a smile, Senior Brother has always been low-key. Even for such an important matter, you still handle it this way. There are many ways to solve this problem. Xiaohua said with a smile. With Senior Brother's current strength, it's even easier. Senior Brother can find the truth with any method. Senior Brother just casually found one. That's true. Sun Shu glanced at Yunya, who didn't speak much, and said with some jealousy, Senior Brother has such a powerful disciple who can casually sweep across the Dawn Rain continent. Then there's no need to care about the method. After saying that, Sun Shu was curious and asked, Hee, Senior Brother, how many of such disciples do you have? Not many, only 6. Xiaohua didn't hide and replied with a smile. So many. Sun Shu said in surprise, are they as powerful as Yuanya? And more or less. Xiaohua knew that this was a chat and said without hiding anything, some are more powerful than him, and some are worse than him. Senior Brother, you really have the momentum of sweeping across the Dawn Rain continent. Sun Shu couldn't help but cry out, then her eyes turned and asked tentatively, how about this, Senior Brother, you let your disciple accept me as a disciple? Sun Shu's feelings for Xiaohua were also deep, but in front of Xue Xue, Sun Shu still tactfully hid these thoughts. Now that Xue Xue had fallen, Sun Shu was even more moved by Xue Xue's fearless love. Her love couldn't help but sprout, so this sentence was also a kind of test. Who knew that Xiaohua's reaction was far beyond her expectations? Xiaohua raised his hand slightly and placed it on Sun Shu's head, rubbing her hair and said with a smile, you are this Xiao's little sister. What do you want to cultivate this Senior Brother can teach you? Why do you need to take them as your master? Logically speaking, they should be able to call you martial aunt. Yes, senior brother, this junior sister understands. Sun Shu's heart ached. She knew that she couldn't be compared to Xue Xue in this life. Although she agreed, the disappointment in her heart was far greater than the joy in her mouth. Seeing Xiaohua cut off Sun Shu's feelings so neatly, Sun Qian at the side sighed with emotion. She looked at Zhen Qing beside her and understood that if Zhen Qing was like this a few years ago, things wouldn't have ended up like this. However, looking at Sun Shu's disappointment and thinking about her own gains, Sun Qian sighed with emotion and also felt happy. Zhen Qing pondered, but she only put this thought aside and asked with a smile, Xiaohua, where have you been cultivating in seclusion these past few years? Why is there no news at all? In other realms, Xiaohua knew that Zhen Qing was concerned, but he still smiled and said, this matter will be known by martial uncle in the future. This junior won't waste time talking about it. But Zhen Qing nodded. Xiaohua was afraid that he would ask too much, so he thought for a moment and said, martial uncle, back then, you gave this junior your understanding of core condensation, which was extremely helpful to this junior's cultivation. Now that this junior has taken a step earlier, I will also share my understanding with martial uncle. Yes, you steer the boat and let Zhen Yu point out the direction. Yes, master. Yuanya replied and asked for the direction of Ardent Fire Mountain. He urged the flying boat to fly faster than before. Zhen Qing, Sun Qian, Sun Shu and Zhen Yu sat on the flying boat and listened to Xiaohua's detailed explanation. Xiaohua's explanation was naturally different from the others. He could see the flaws in each person's cultivation and where they needed to be supplemented. Therefore, although it seemed that he was talking to the four of them, each of them listened as if he was exhorting them. They really benefited a lot. Even after 10 days, when Ardent Fire Mountain was already in sight, they were still immersed in the enlightenment and did not hear anything. Xiaohua stopped and said with a smile, Martial uncle, we are already near Ardent Fire Mountain. You can inform the Fire Qilin now. Zhen Qing and the others were listening to the wonderful part. Xiaohua suddenly stopped and felt a little embarrassed. Sun Shu could not help but beg, Senior Martial Brother, please talk for another half a day. This little sister is listening with enthusiasm. Unfortunately, Xiaohua shook his head and said, it's not that I don't want to talk, but this kind of explanation is far from ending. If I don't talk about it until you step into the Mahayana realm and ascend to the immortal realm, you will never feel satisfied. Then how about another half a day? Zhen Qing could not help but ask. But Xiaohua pondered for a moment, nodded and started talking again. Sure enough, half a day passed very quickly. When Xiaohua stopped talking, the four of them still felt that they were not satisfied. Without waiting for Sun Shu to speak, Xiaohua said with a smile, in the future, if I establish a sect in the Dawn Rain continent, I will definitely hold a forum and give lectures. If you all want to listen, you can go at that time. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all kinds of support. Chapter 5088. Alas! Zhen Yu sighed and said, it's only today that Junior understands what it means to gladly endure hardships. Previously, when Junior was cultivating, there were often things that Junior didn't understand. Sometimes, the master who taught me didn't explain it clearly, which made Junior feel that the path of cultivation was really difficult. But now, after listening to Taoist's lecture, I feel that the path of cultivation is really bright. You think too much. Xiaohua responded and said to Zhen Qing, Martial uncle, send out the summoning talisman. If we delay any longer, there might be other cultivators coming to the Ardent Fire Mountain. But Zhen Qing glanced at Xiaohua and knew that he had already discovered other cultivators. She quickly took out the summoning talisman and activated it with her magic power. The summoning talisman flew into the distant Crimson Mountain range and disappeared. Seeing the summoning talisman disappear, Zhen Qing was about to ask who the other cultivators were when a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. He couldn't help but bite his lips because he already understood that Xiaohua's appearance wasn't just a coincidence. It might even be intentional. Xiaohua wanted to test Chen Yi. Alas, this is fate. Zhen Qing sighed inwardly. Chen Yi has been scheming against others all her life, but I didn't expect that she would fall into someone else's scheme today. No, it should be said that this is someone else's test. If she was a little bit more sentimental, she wouldn't have ended up in this state. Zhen Qing, who was easily sentimental, fell into a state of longing again and didn't say anything. In the sky, other than the flying boat, there was only the whistling of the mountain wind. The mountain peak here was different from other places. Other than the mountain rocks being crimson red, the ground was also crimson red. On the ground, there was a type of plant that was more than a foot tall. This plant stem was red, and between the branches and leaves, there was a spiral shape. Layer after layer of light red was stained on the surface like smoke. When the wind blew, the red leaves danced, as if they were covered in flames. On the mountain peak, there were also tall pine trees. These pine trees were also red. Although the red of the pine trees wasn't as bright as the red of the ground and was somewhat dark, the red was dense like blood. When the mountain wind whistled, the pine trees swayed, and the crimson color danced. Amidst the crimson color, a fiery red flying shuttle that could only accommodate one person flew out from the mountain range. When the flying shuttle landed, an aura-refining disciple jumped down from the shuttle. Looking at everyone, he didn't dare to neglect and bowed respectfully. Junior is Huafeng from the Ardent Fire Mountain. Get up. Zhen Qing collected her thoughts and helped Huafeng up with a smile. We are disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect. We rushed here after receiving the Fire Qilin's message. Bring us to him. Huafeng stood up and looked at the crowd. He smiled and said, Seniors, may I know which one of you is Ancestor Zhen? Oh, because my Imperial Thunder Sect has some important matters to attend to, Martial Ancestor Zhen can't come personally, so he sent us over. Sun Shu frowned and answered for Zhen Qing. Then, Huafeng was still unwilling to give up and asked, which Grandmaster is a nascent soul Grandmaster? No nascent soul Grandmaster from my Imperial Thunder Sect has come. Sun Shu was somewhat displeased and said, if the Fire Qilin doesn't welcome the disciples of the Imperial Lightning Sect, then we will return and report to Ancestor Zhen. Senior, please forgive me. Huafeng was sent by the Fire Qilin to welcome them, so he was naturally eloquent. He hurriedly replied, Junior didn't mean that. Junior doesn't know if my Grandmaster made it clear in the message he sent to Ancestor Zhen, but the current situation in the Ardent Fire Mountain is somewhat complicated. If you don't have the strength of a nascent soul Grandmaster, I'm afraid you won't be able to deal with it. Moreover, your life might be in danger, so Junior asked a few more questions. The meaning in Huafeng's words was very clear. If Xiaohua wasn't here, Zhen Qing might have turned around and left. But at this moment, Zhen Qing's expression was calm and she said with a smile, Huafeng, don't worry. Bring us to see the Fire Qilin. We definitely won't disappoint him. Huafeng naturally couldn't tell the strength of Xiaohua, Yuanya, Zhen Qing and the others, but after hearing Zhen Qing's assurance, he was overjoyed. He brought Zhen Qing and the others and flew into the depths of the mountain. Senior Martial Brother. Sun Shu couldn't help but ask through voice transmission, are there any other cultivators from the other sects coming? Are there any other cultivators from the other sects? Sun Shu didn't know what to say when he saw the blazing hot air in front of him. Xiaohua glanced into the distance and revealed a strange expression. He said with a smile, I don't know many nascent soul cultivators, but I'm very familiar with this nascent soul cultivator. Who? Sun Shu was somewhat curious. After all, Xiaohua was only a foundation establishment cultivator before he went missing. Meng Country, Changbai Sect, Taoist Jingru. Xiaohua said word by word. Taoist Jingru? Sun Shu was stunned and asked curiously, he's a cultivator from Meng Country. Why did he come to my country of Shi? There's no other way. Xiaohua said with a smile, it seems that there are many nascent soul cultivators who received the favor of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain. After several hundred years, their descendants can still find nascent soul cultivators to help them with their tokens. Later, when she saw how powerful Yuanya was, Sun Shu racked her brains to guess Xiaohua's cultivation level. Now, when she heard that Xiaohua was about to ascend, her brain buzzed, as if the whole world was about to collapse or darken. The immortal realm was almost ethereal to all the cultivators on the Dawn Rain continent, but to Sun Shu, it was closer to an ideal. She had never thought that she would be able to face a cultivator who was about to ascend. Moreover, this cultivator had traveled with her and gone through trials and hardships together. Seeing everyone's astonishment, Xiaohua said with a smile, "This is the path that all cultivators must take. As long as you all work hard, this day will definitely come." Yes, Junior understands. Facing such a supreme cultivator, Zhen Qing didn't dare to be negligent. She bowed and replied, "Understood." AI, another karma settled. When Xiaohua heard how Zhen Qing addressed him, he sighed in his heart. He understood that he had one less concern in this world. While everyone was talking, they arrived in front of another mountain. This mountain was one of the many mountain peaks. Cryptic fluctuations were emitted from it from time to time. Wherever the fluctuations passed, faint flames would appear in the void. When the wind blew, the flames would also appear. Everyone stood in front of the mountain peak as if they were facing a huge bundle of flames. "Senior, please wait a moment." Huo Feng stopped and respectfully said, "Junior asks martial ancestor to come out and welcome us." Zhen Qing replied with a smile. With an ascended cultivator overseeing things, she was even more confident. Huo Feng sent out a communication talisman. Not long after, the fire Qilin flew over with a group of disciples from the ardent fire mountain. Some of these disciples were quite old, some were young, and some were in the foundation establishment realm. However, most of them were in the aura refining realm. When the fire Qilin saw that Xing Yunzi wasn't among the group of cultivators, he was obviously disappointed. However, this was within his expectations. When he saw Xiaohua, his face unconsciously became more spirited. He hurriedly bowed respectfully and said, "Junior Fire Qilin greets Senior." "Senior, you seem a bit unfamiliar. How should I address you?" "This old man's name is Zhang Xiaohua." Xiaohua said with a smile. "Just call me Senior Zhang." Yes, Junior greets Senior Zhang." After the fire Qilin bowed, he greeted everyone. Xiaohua paid attention to the fire Qilin. At this time, the fire Qilin was already a late-stage gold core cultivator. Not only was his face old, but there was also a lot of fatigue between his eyebrows. However, the way he greeted people was very different from before. He was no longer straightforward and had added the necessary etiquette. Although there was a lot of hypocrisy in his etiquette, it could still be considered an improvement. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all forms of support. Thank you to Alliance Leader Mei Xianjun, Alliance Leader Chuan Tong, Alliance Leader Taoist Xiao, Book of Flight, and other fellow Taoists. Chapter 5089. After greeting each other, the fire Qilin couldn't help but ask again, "Fellow Taoist Zhen, does Senior Xing Yunzi really have no time to come? Today's matter is really too important to I." Hearing this, Xiaohua laughed in his heart and thought to himself, after all, it's the fire Qilin. If it was someone else who knew that Xing Yunzi wasn't coming, why would they ask again? Moreover, he didn't go out to greet him and only sent a disciple. This is obviously disrespectful to the Imperial Thunder sect. Zhen Qing had no choice but to repeat the previous words. The disappointment on the fire Qilin's face deepened. He looked at Zhen Qing and then at Xiaohua and asked in a low voice, "Senior Zhang, what's your current strength?" "I'm at the early nascent soul stage." Xiaohua said proudly. "Well, if you only want to wait for Xing Yunzi, then I'll go back first." Zhen Qing hurriedly mediated and said, "Fire Qilin, Senior Zhang is a good friend of my Grandmaster. Grandmaster Zhen can't come, so he specially invited Senior Zhang to come. Don't be rude." The fire Qilin woke up and hurriedly said with an apologetic smile, "Senior, please don't blame me. Junior didn't mean that." Junior heard that the Fire Luan not only invited Changbai Sect's Reverend Jing Ru, but also invited a mysterious cultivator. That Reverend Jing Ru is a senior in the middle or late nascent soul stage. Junior was afraid that Senior Zhang would be at a disadvantage. Fire Qilin, why did you invite Xing Yunzi over? Xiao Hua frowned and said, I'm only here to represent Xing Yunzi. I'm not here to fight with my life on the line. You have to explain the matter clearly. The Fire Qilin was somewhat embarrassed and hurriedly replied, Senior, there's no need to fight with my life on the line, but a fight is possible. Junior begs Senior. Junior's life is in Senior's hands. I'm just an early nascent soul stage cultivator. How can I be Reverend Jing Ru's opponent? Xiaohua said, You've put your life on my hands. Isn't it all for nothing? Oh, Senior, don't worry. The Fire Qilin said again, Junior invited Senior Zhen and others, damn it. Xiaohua said somewhat angrily, Fire Qilin, what's going on? What happened to your ardent fire mountain? Who else did you invite? Senior. The Fire Qilin hurriedly replied. But at that moment, whoosh! Another messaging talisman flew over from afar, passing through the many restrictive spells and landing in front of the Fire Qilin. The Fire Qilin received the messaging talisman and glanced at it. It was immediately overjoyed and cried out, Senior Zhang, please wait a moment. This junior will go and welcome Adept Bluefeather. Everything will be explained once I return. After saying that, the Fire Qilin's figure streaked across the sky and rushed out of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Behind him, the group of Ardent Fire Mountain disciples were somewhat flustered. They did not know if they should follow the Fire Qilin to welcome Adept Bluefeather or stay here to accompany Xiaohua and the others. Of course, this was only for a short moment before some older disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain appeared. After a brief discussion, some of them brought their disciples and flew up to welcome Adept Bluefeather. Some of them stayed where they were, accompanying Xiaohua and the others as they waited for Adept Bluefeather. Senior, please forgive me. The one who accompanied Xiaohua was an early-stage gold-core old man. He smiled and said to Xiaohua, Senior, don't look at my family's young master's lack of understanding. His temperament is the most straightforward and sincere. He is the most suitable candidate to be the sect master of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Only he can convince the masses and make the other two sects of the Ardent Fire Mountain follow him wholeheartedly. Xiaohua did not comment. He also looked out of the Ardent Fire Mountain like everyone else. He seemed to have some thoughts in his heart. Adept Bluefeather is a nascent soul cultivator of the Meng Nation's immortal music sect. Adept Jingyu is also a nascent soul cultivator of the Meng Nation's Changbai sect. These two nascent soul cultivators of the Meng Nation were invited by two people of the Ardent Fire Mountain at the same time. Is this a coincidence? In fact, whether it was a coincidence or not didn't mean anything to Xiaohua. In just half a cup of tea's time, Adept Bluefeather and his disciples had already arrived in front of the Ardent Fire Mountain accompanied by the Fire Qilin. Xiaohua had met Adept Bluefeather in the Xiankong Pavilion of Haoming City. At that time, Adept Bluefeather was just a short and fat early-stage nascent soul cultivator. 600 years had left a lot of hardships on Adept Bluefeather's face. It even allowed Adept Bluefeather to step into the late-stage nascent soul stage. However, it did not change Adept Bluefeather's short and fat body. Xiaohua recognized the high and mighty nascent soul grandmaster at a glance. Junior greets Adept Bluefeather. Although Adept Bluefeather was a cultivator of the Meng Nation, the disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain and the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect all bowed to greet him. While everyone bowed, only Xiaohua and Yuanya stood upright. Adept Bluefeather naturally saw Xiaohua and Yuanya. Xiaohua was somewhat glad that he had suppressed his realm to the nascent soul stage. If he had been at the gold core stage, he might have had to salute Adept Bluefeather. Wouldn't he have reaped what he sowed? Thinking of this, Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, I Zhang Xiaohua greets Adept Bluefeather. Zhang Xiaohua. Adept Bluefeather frowned and asked curiously, how come this old man didn't know that there was a nascent soul cultivator called Zhang Xiaohua in the country of Xi? Fellow Taoist is not a cultivator of the country of Shi, so naturally you don't know about the matters of the country of Shi. Xiao Hua retorted indifferently, could it be that every nascent soul cultivator in the country of Shi has to report to the country of Meng? Senior. The Fire Qilin hurriedly tried to smooth things over and said with a smile, Senior Bluefeather, this Senior Zhang is a good friend of Senior Xing Yunzi from the Imperial Thunder Sect. He came to my Ardent Fire Mountain because of Senior Zhen's request. Senior, please don't misunderstand. How can this old man misunderstand? Adept Bluefeather sneered. This old man is only afraid that someone has mixed in with us and hindered you from taking charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Take charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain? Xiao Hua frowned and said, Fire Qilin, this old man asked you before. This old man didn't know what happened to your Ardent Fire Mountain, and you didn't explain clearly. How come there's someone taking charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain now? The Fire Qilin smiled bitterly and said, Senior Zhang, no matter what, you are still a nascent soul cultivator of the country of Shi. How could you not know the current situation of my Ardent Fire Mountain? Xiao Hua nodded and said, this old man naturally knows the situation of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Since the fall of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain hundreds of years ago, the Ardent Fire Mountain has become a pile of loose sand. There hasn't been a qualified sect master to support the Ardent Fire Mountain. Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua suddenly realized, and said, this old man understands. This time, you want to choose a suitable sect master, right? Facing Xiao Hua's hindsight, the Fire Qilin was a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, Senior Zhang is right. That's why this junior invited Adept Bluefeather and Senior Zhen to help this junior, so that I can take the position of sect master of the Ardent Fire Mountain in one fell swoop. Xiao Hua took a deep look at the Fire Qilin and said with a smile, so that's how it is. This old man received Xing Yunzi's message and hurried over, so I didn't think much about it. No wonder you said that you needed this old man to take action. But since this old man wants to take action, what benefits does this old man have? Seeing Xiao Hua directly ask about the benefits in front of so many people, the Fire Qilin's expression became very awkward. He looked at Adept Bluefeather and opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he hesitated. Adept Bluefeather was displeased. He looked at Xiao Hua and asked, Fellow Taoist Zhang, which sect are you from? Fortune Gate. Xiao Hua replied indifferently. Fortune Gate? Adept Bluefeather was stunned. Then, a sneer appeared on his face and he said coldly, So you were sent by Zhong Haoren to tease this old man. When the Fire Qilin heard this, he was also stunned. He looked at Xiao Hua strangely and whispered, Fortune Gate? Without waiting for Xiao Hua to explain, Adept Bluefeather said, This old man doesn't care which sect you are from, but since you are a nascent soul master, you should have the awareness of a nascent soul master. You should understand the rules of a high-level cultivator. When you saw this old man just now, you didn't even know how to salute, and now you are asking about the benefits in front of others. Could it be that your family's elders didn't teach you? Seeing that Adept Bluefeather was getting angry and even dared to talk about his sect's elders, an early gold core old man who had accompanied the Fire Qilin to greet Adept Bluefeather hurriedly flew out from the crowd and bowed, Senior Bluefeather, please don't be anxious. Adept Bluefeather was even more displeased with being interrupted. He sneered, Who are you? How dare you interrupt this old man? The Fire Qilin hurriedly said, Senior, please know that this is the Hall Master of my Ardent Fire Mountain's Fire Spirit Hall, Hall Master Hua Pengfei. Senior, please don't be anxious. Listen to Junior's explanation. Hua Pengfei said with a smile, although this Senior Zhang is a bit straightforward, his words are not excessive. After all, he followed Senior to the Ardent Fire Mountain from afar. From a moral point of view, he has already done his best. Supporting my Fire Qilin's martial uncle Hua to take charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain is not something that can be decided with just a few words. We invited seniors to come here to borrow seniors' strength. If my Ardent Fire Mountain did not pay any price, how could seniors help us? When we sent the message to seniors that day, juniors wanted to make things clear. However, Martial Uncle Qilin felt that seniors had not come yet, so it was too unscrupulous to talk about the price and benefits. Therefore, he did not say anything. As a matter of fact, it caused a misunderstanding. Senior Xing Yunzi of the Imperial Thunder sect did not come, and Senior Zhang also misunderstood that my Ardent Fire Mountain only spoke empty words. This is the fault of my Ardent Fire Mountain. Junior apologizes to seniors on behalf of Martial Uncle Qilin. Seeing that Hua Pengfei was apologizing, the Fire Qilin hurriedly said, "This is my fault. How can I let Hall Master Hua apologize?" Senior Zhang, Senior Bluefeather, Junior was not familiar with the affairs of the common people in his early years. These years I have changed a lot, but after all, let's not talk about it. This is Junior's fault. Seniors, please forgive me. Xiaohua was about to raise his hand to speak when he suddenly saw Adept Bluefeather's lips move. His heart stirred and he slightly urged his divine ability. Adept Bluefeather's voice transmitted to his ears. "Pengfei, Fire Qilin still hasn't decided? This Zhang Xiaohua is a nascent soul cultivator from which sect in the state of Xi? Don't let him mess up our plans." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.